Chapter 370. They could not afford to offend President Fu. But they could not afford to offend President Hua. However, at this moment, Yu Qinya was so angry that her whole body was trembling. When she saw that Bai Yunj only scored 3 or 4 points, she could not help but sneer. What's the point of playing alone? If you're not afraid of losing, why don't you compete with me? Originally, she had accompanied Fu Yanbai here today to please him. After all, she was very good at shooting sports. But now, she had made up her mind to embarrass Bai Yunj on the spot. Bai Yunj's beautiful eyes were cold as she glanced at her indifferently. She smirked. You, not at school. In her previous life, when Bai Yunj returned to the Pei family to inherit the family business, she had seen many female companions at the bar. But most of them were sensible. They knew their own status, and could not cause trouble. As for the one in front of her, she was obviously brainless. Yu Qinya was furious. How could she not tell that Bai Yunj did not want to talk to her at all? Yu Qinya turned her head, and begged the man beside her. President Fu, I just want to compete with Master Du's wife. Fu Yanbai glanced at her coldly, but his gaze landed on Bai Yunj again. He smiled. Sister, you don't want to? Previously, he had thought that Bai Yunj's personality was similar to Yu Ling's. But when Bai Yunj pointed her gun at Yu Qinya just now, he also felt that this girl was much wilder than Yu Ling. At least, Yu Ling would not dare to do such a thing. The impatience and coldness in Bai Yunj's eyes could not be suppressed. However, in the next moment, Yun, not far away, the man's magnetic voice sounded, causing the hostility in Bai Yunj's eyes to dissipate. Brother. Her eyes curved. Compared to the way she ignored everyone just now, Bai Yunj was much more obedient now. When Yu Qinya heard this familiar voice, she froze and could not help but look at the man who was walking over. However, the man's gaze only landed on one person from the beginning to the end. What are you doing here? Washida glanced at the others indifferently, and finally asked Bai Yunj. Someone wants to compete with me in shooting. Bai Yunj felt Yu Qinya's eyes on Huashidu, and the corners of her lips curled up. She took a step closer to the man, and naturally held Huashida's shirt. This scene almost made Yu Qinya's eyes spit fire. But who would have thought? Huashida did not shake off Bai Yunj. His gaze only landed on Fu Yanbai. Are you very free? Fu Yanbai laughed instead. Master Du has a good eye for female companions. How can this be a female companion? The man stretched out his hand lazily, and casually scratched Bai Yunj's chin. His magnetic voice was so casual that it made people's ears go soft. This is the ancestor of the family. After saying this, everyone else was stunned. Not only Yu Qinya, but even Fu Yanbai's smile froze. Huashida had always been pure and had few desires. He had never seen him treat other women differently. However, the person in front of him was the first one. Who do you want to compete with her? The man with clear eyes turned his head lazily again. It was obvious that he wanted to find trouble with Fu Yanbai for this girl. Master Du, do you have to be so unhappy? Fu Yanbai smiled. But everyone knew in their hearts. Fu Yanbai wanted Yu Qinya to compete with Bai Yunj. That was obvious. He treated Bai Yunj as Huashida's lover. Similarly, Yu Qinya looked at Huashidu and Bai Yunj standing together, and resentment rose in her heart. Chapter 371. Suddenly, it's not that I don't want to. Then, Bai Yunj curved her lips and her eyes were frighteningly cold. That will depend on what President Fu is willing to use as the wager. Fu Yanbai smiled. What do you want, sister? Is the Fu Corporation okay too? The girl's slow question made the entire place fall into silence. This sister seemed to be a ruthless person. Yun, I'm afraid President Fu can't make this decision. But President Fu can still afford 5% of the Fu Corporation's shares. The man let out a long laugh and said unhurriedly. It was obvious that Huashidu was going to support this girl. Fu Yanbai smiled. If Yaya wins, how much will President Hua have to fork out? 5% of the Hua Corporation. The man did not care. Hearing this, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. They didn't expect that such a simple competition would have such high stakes. 5% of the Fu Corporation could not be compared to 5% of the Hua Corporation. Fu Yanbai came back to his senses. I didn't expect Master Du to be so reckless. I'm just making my child happy. The man's lazy tone was indescribably indulgent. Then, he naturally held the girl's wrist and led her to the archery path at the side. Bei Yunj felt the dry and warm palm on her wrist, and her heart inexplicably skipped a few beats. There's a reason why brother has so many rotten peach blossoms. Bei Yunj walked beside the male actor and said in a double volume. This man could easily show just the right amount of intimacy. It made people's hearts throb and jump for joy. They wanted to take ing. When Hoshida heard this, he raised his eyebrows slightly. He looked casual and frivolous. But brother doesn't have a headache about rotten peach blossoms. He only has a headache about the ingrates at home. Bei Yunj, Yu Qinya, who was following behind, did not hear the conversation clearly, but her gaze was fixed on the man who took the initiative to hold Bei Yunj's hand. It was just as she had thought in the past. For a cold and abstinent man like Hoshidu, once he was tainted by love, how terrible would he look? Even favoritism was enough to make one's heart beat wildly. But the person who pulled him down from the altar was another woman. Yu Qinya unconsciously clenched her fists. Jealousy and anger intertwined in her heart. The malice in her eyes was even more frightening. In front of the arrow path, Yu Qinya's face was cold. She tried her best not to make her face look distorted. How about we each shoot 10 times and see the total score? Major. Looking at Bei Yunj's indifferent expression, Yu Qinya couldn't help but sneer. Alright, I'll go first. Yu Qinya walked in front of the archery path and confidently picked up the air rifle, ready to work. Not long after, gunshots rang out one after another. The shop assistant beside him, who was counting the rings, had a look of admiration. Yu Qinya was indeed good at this. Out of the 10 gunshots, the lowest one was a 6-ring one. The rest were stable at 7 or 8 rings. And there was even a 10th ring. One had to know that the target used for the 10-meter standard archery track was very close to the standard target of the international competition. Although the difficulty was reduced by a lot, it was still difficult to hit the bullseye. 6 rings once, 7 rings 4 times, 8 rings 3 times, 9 rings once and 10 rings once. The total number of rings is 77. Hearing that the results were better than usual, Yu Qinya's eyes were filled with pride. Not far away, Fu Yanbai also smiled with interest. Master Du, I think I'm going to win this round. Is that so? Hoshida didn't seem to care. Bei Yunj might lose 5% of the Hua Corporation's shares. It's your turn now. Yu Qinya walked up to Bei Yunj arrogantly. Bei Yunj ignored her. Instead, he glanced at the man not far away. His upturned eyes curved slightly. Not long after, everyone saw this unfamiliar girl in front of them. She only adjusted for about half a minute before aiming. Chapter 372. Before anyone could react, the sound of gunshots suddenly rang out. This was completely unlike Yu Qinya, who would stop and adjust after shooting just now. The sound of gunshots almost didn't seem to be interrupted. It made people wonder if the person who was shooting now knew how to shoot. However, the result was unexpected. The shop assistant was stunned for a moment before he hurriedly said, 9 points. When they heard the lowest score, everyone froze. Yu Qinya, who was originally full of smugness, had a distorted expression. When Bei Yunj was testing the gun just now, she didn't even get a high score. But what was going on now? 9 times 10 points. This was the second time the shop assistant had encountered such a godly result. He almost suspected that he was in a dream. Was this result serious? Was this really not a godly person? How is this possible? Yu Qinya subconsciously blurted out, her face pale. However, after Bei Yunj put down the gun, she turned around and smiled at Hoshidu. Her bright eyes were full of high spirits. Brother, I won. Seeing Bei Yunj turn around and look at him with a pair of sparkling eyes, Hoshidu inexplicably felt something tickle his heart. It was itchy and made his heart flutter slightly. Hoshida's eyes gradually darkened and hid all the light. He suddenly walked towards her and casually reached out to help Bei Yunj tidy the clothes that were tied around her waist. He curled his lips and laughed hoarsely. Yes, amazing. This scene was indescribably doting. It was simply fatal. Many female friends around them felt their teenage hearts reignite. However, Eugenia's face turned pale. She subconsciously took a step back and was a little distracted. How could this be? This woman was deliberately lying to her. This woman clearly knew how to shoot, but she deliberately didn't. Wasn't it obvious that she wanted to see her make a fool of herself? At this moment, unexpectedly, Fu Yanbai's expression was not bad. Instead, he looked at Bei Yunj with even more passion. He didn't expect the girl beside Huashidu to be so powerful. Huashidu had really picked up a treasure. Suddenly, I almost forgot about President Fu's bet. Bei Yunj's voice sounded. Yu Qingya bit her lip and stared at Bei Yunj. She couldn't stop complaining. You did it on purpose. You obviously know how to do it, yet you still want to compete with me. I don't know how to do it. Why should I compete with you? Bei Yunj sneered. These words made Yu Qingya's face turn red. It's time for President Fu to fulfill his promise. Bei Yunj wiped his hands slowly, but there was no warmth in his beautiful eyes, and the curve of his lips was cold. Hearing this, Yu Qingya subconsciously looked at Fu Yanbai. Her beautiful eyes were filled with tears, and one couldn't help but be moved. Fu Yanbai spoke. When the time comes, I'll have someone draft the agreement and send it to Master Du. Before Yu Qingya could heave a sigh of relief, he looked at her again and said coldly, You don't have to follow me anymore. In an instant, Yu Qingya's face was pale, and she was trembling all over. She didn't expect Fu Yanbai to treat her like this in public. President Fu, Before Yu Qingya could say anything, she met Fu Yanbai's cold gaze and subconsciously didn't dare to say anything. But when she turned around, when she saw Bei Yunj, her expression became indignant again. What right did this person have to be chosen by Huashidu? What right did she have to be stepped on by this person? She looked at Bei Yunj and couldn't help but mock. Are you very proud? But no matter how proud you are, you're just a person who relied on fishing men to get to where you are. As soon as she finished speaking, Yu Qingya didn't notice that Huashida's gaze had become colder. The atmosphere became even colder. Before anyone could guess, Huashida suddenly said, Ask your manager to come over. Hearing this, the staff quickly nodded and immediately called the manager to deal with the situation. When the others saw this scene, they also knew that Yu Qingya had completely offended this gentleman. Yu Qingya was also afraid, but she didn't want to believe that Huashida really didn't have any intention of taking pity on her. Then, she heard the manager's voice. President Hua, why are you looking for me? The manager said with a fawning smile. Your boss's biological sister is being bullied in his shop. Do you still need me to settle this matter? Huashida's unhurried voice sounded. However, when the manager heard this, he was stunned. The boss's sister. The people around also regained their senses. This archery hall was opened by Qinyu, the boss's sister. Wasn't she the eldest sister of the Qin family? Everyone was in disbelief. They didn't expect to meet the eldest sister of the Qin family, who would make the headlines from time to time. The manager was even more stunned. Eldest sister? He never thought that President Hua would not bring along a young female companion. But his boss's sister? What was going on? Bei Yunj also furrowed her eyebrows quietly. She didn't expect this to be Qin Yu's place. Impossible. She's the Qin family's sister. Yu Qingya's expression changed immediately, and she could not continue speaking, as if she had been struck by lightning. After all, everyone still remembered clearly that the Qin family had spent hundreds of millions to celebrate Bei Yunj's birthday. If you don't handle this well, your boss will talk to you, Huashida said calmly. Hearing this, the manager shivered. He had long heard about how much their boss doted on his sister. If his boss found out that his biological sister was being bullied here, he as the manager might be done for. However, what made him angry but not dare to say anything was that this master only told him now. When he first came in, he didn't even inform him. Otherwise, he would have arranged for at least 4 security guards to follow Bei Yunj. No matter what, eldest sister was the most important. The manager took a deep breath and smiled. I'll settle this for eldest sister. Don't worry. With that said, the manager looked at Bei Yunj, his gaze becoming even more amiable. If eldest sister wants to play in the future, just call me in advance. I'll empty the VIP area for eldest sister. Seeing this treatment, Yu Qingya finally knew how far apart she was from this woman in front of her. Yu Qingya's legs turned to jelly. She didn't expect to really kick an iron board this time. Bei Yunj replied casually and looked at Hoshidu. Brother, let's go back. Okay. The moment Hoshidu finished speaking, Fu Yenbai's gaze darkened. Then, before he could follow, the woman beside him grabbed his wrist. President Fu, I was wrong. Can you forgive me? A trace of coldness and impatience flashed past Fu Yenbai's eyes. Watching as Hoshidu and Hoshida left, he shook Yu Qingya off and didn't say anything. He didn't care how badly the woman behind him was crying. Outside the door, President Hua is leaving so quickly. Aren't you willing to bring Sister Pei to have dinner with me? Chapter 373. Fu Yenbai, who had chased after her, kept staring at Bei Yunj. There was a hint of a smile in his refined eyes, but his gaze made people feel uncomfortable. Hearing this, Bei Yunj's expression when she was talking to Hoshidu just now was gone. Her beautiful eyes were cold. She could feel that he had a motive. Suddenly, the man beside her held Bei Yunj's hand. His warm palm stunned Bei Yunj. Hoshida's tone was casual. There's no need. Fu Yenbai put out the cigarette in his hand. He did not hide his interest in Bei Yunj. His gaze was filled with possessiveness. Master, do consider it as doing me a favor this time. How about giving me a girl? He could tell that this girl treated Hoshida differently from the others. But with Hoshida's status, what kind of woman couldn't he want? Who would think? The man only sneered softly, as if there was a hint of disdain and coldness in his voice. He held the girl's hand and said in a low and magnetic voice, Fu Yenbai, this child is mine. Hearing this, Fu Yenbai was stunned for a moment. He obviously did not expect Hoshidu to give such an answer. President Hua, you're not someone who cares about women. Fu Yenbai clenched his fists, his gaze still on Bei Yunj. Fu Yenbai, how can you go crazy? The corners of the man's upturned eyes were charming, but there was no warmth in his pale-colored pupils. His unhurried voice was gentle but cold. But if anyone dares to touch my child, I will personally cripple half of his life. Bei Yunj looked sideways. She saw the man's handsome side profile. He looked casual, but it made her heart flutter. President Hua, you know that she looks like Yu Ling. Fu Yenbai was unwilling to accept it. Hoshidu sneered. No one can compare to my girl. Don't have any ideas about my people. Otherwise, with old Master Fu around, I don't mind teaching you how to be a person on his behalf. After that, Hoshida left with Bei Yunj. Fu Yenbai was left standing on the spot with a terrifying gaze, and his hands clenched into fists. Outside the door, Bei Yunj looked at Hoshidu. Brother? This was the first time she saw Hoshidu like this. After a while, Hoshida's expression gradually returned to normal. He smiled and pinched her face casually. Did you scare our union? No, Sakura. Bei Yunj asked subconsciously. What's wrong with that person? How could he be so obsessed with someone he met for the first time? If you see him in the future, make a detour. Hoshidu explained slowly and added, this is a lunatic. 2 years ago, he forced the woman he liked to jump into the sea. All these years, Fu Yenbai had been looking for the whereabouts of that woman. She heard that the young female companions beside Fu Yenbai all looked a little like that woman. Do I look like the person he likes? Bei Yunj recalled Fu Yenbai's words just now. Hoshida's gaze landed on her. Just as Bei Yunj felt a little awkward and wanted to turn her face away, the man suddenly approached her. He looked at her and smiled. His low and magnetic voice carried a hint of warmth that seemed to be able to stir the wind by her ears. You don't look like it. Our union is unique. Bei Yunj. Why did this man always feel like he was whispering sweet nothings? Brother, don't you have something to talk to me about? Bei Yunj changed the topic. The man seemed to pause for a moment before he chuckled hoarsely. Yes, there's something. When Bei Yunj heard this, she instinctively looked up. Unexpectedly, she met the man's dark eyes. There was an inexplicable sense of aggression as he stared straight at her. Chapter 374. Bei Yunj instinctively looked up when she heard this. Unexpectedly, she bumped into the man's dark and indistinct eyes. They were staring straight at her, with an inexplicable sense of aggression. Bei Yunj quickly turned her face away. Brother, why don't we go back in? Before she could finish her sentence. Yunyan, can you do me a favor? The man suddenly said. What? As soon as Bei Yunj finished speaking, the man suddenly grabbed her wrist. Before she could react, the force on her wrist increased slightly. Then, the forward inertia caused her to fall directly into a warm and firm chest. The surrounding fragrance was getting stronger and stronger, making one's heart palpitate. Huashidu felt his heart beating faster, and his thin red lips curled up slightly. His pale-colored pupils were devoid of desire, but the corners of his upturned eyes were seductive, especially at this moment. His lazy and frivolous eyes carried a gentle ambiguity, ostentatious and seductive. So that's how it is. Bei Yunj was still confused. She only heard the man's laughter and his low and magnetic voice as he muttered to himself. Brother, what did you say? Bei Yunj's ears went soft. Seeing that Huashidu had let go of her slightly, she asked again. Unexpectedly, the man only looked at her for a while before reaching out to pinch her cheek. He chuckled happily. It's nothing. You'll know when you get older. Bei Yunj. Why did she feel that this man was very strange today? Suddenly, just as they walked into the parking lot, the man asked, Yunyan, do you have a university that you like? No. Bei Yunj did not hesitate. Then what about Yun University? Huashidu asked slowly. Bei Yunj looked at him instinctively and did not speak. Yunqing University was the best school in the country. However, she had always thought that Huashidu allowed her to choose a school. 2K then. Huashidu turned to look at her. His deep and lazy voice sounded again. I want you to stay in Yuncheng. The corners of his lips curled up, and he dragged his voice, as if he was deliberately seducing her. He could easily bewitch her. So, Yunyan, work hard for me, okay? At the Computing Institute, the man at the door sat helplessly on the ground, his eyes empty. Ji Yiqing didn't know how to comfort him. Boss, will you really be alright? The man's voice was hoarse, and he could not help but gently press his sore eyes with the base of his palm. He was the third spy in Ji Yiqing's mission, but he didn't expect that the group of people would find his wife of a year and take her away yesterday. Bao, we will find sister-in-law. Ji Yiqing patted his shoulder to comfort him, but in fact he wasn't sure either. After all, no one could imagine what those people could do. Female hostages were often more dangerous than male hostages. In the research lab, the family of the undercover agent was kidnapped. Gore, this is too difficult to control. Zhong Xinlin subconsciously took a deep breath. Bei Yunj sat in front of the computer. After a while she said, let the spy in. I have something to tell him. Gore. Zhong Xinlin frowned subconsciously. Actually, Zhong Xinlin did not want Bei Yunj to interfere out of selfishness. After all, that was not Bei Yunj's responsibility. As a scientific researcher, it was difficult for him to predict how much Bei Yunj could push the country's computing field forward in the future. Therefore, he did not want Bei Yunj to take the risk. Elder Zhong, don't worry. I'll be fine. Chapter 375. But who would have thought that the next moment, they heard Zhong Xinlin speak. I'm looking for you. You can go in alone. Zhong Xinlin looked at Bao and said. When Ji Yiqing heard this, he also understood that her identity was confidential. Ordinary people could not see her. Go ahead. Ji Yiqing patted Bao's shoulder. Bao wiped the corners of his eyes and quickly composed himself. He nodded and stood up. Okay. At the door. Bao knocked on the door and slowly walked in. He called softly, Miss? Suddenly, come here. A young and clear voice sounded, which surprised Bao. But what surprised him even more was that the girl in front of him was unbelievably beautiful. He would never have thought that such a girl would be. Miss? Bao was a little uncertain. Bei Yunj glanced at him and smiled. Have a seat. I have something to ask you. Bao sat down a little cautiously. Okay. How do you usually contact them? Bei Yunj's question confused Bao. When I went undercover, I didn't get through to the internal department. Usually, it's only them who contact me. After Bao finished speaking, he couldn't help but ask carefully. Why are you asking about this? A few days ago, I destroyed the computer that they usually use. Now I can't talk to them, Bae-yunj said casually. Bao. Maybe they don't really want to talk to you. Not long after, Bao remembered that a group of people use human organs to threaten Bae-yunj some time ago. He probably didn't expect to provoke someone who was so vengeful. Miss, can you save my wife? Bao lowered his head and unconsciously clenched his fists. He also didn't expect that there would be a day when he would need someone to save him. Bae-yunj looked at him and didn't answer this question. They will contact you. Wait for a while. Why? Bao asked. Bae-yunj played with the fountain pen in her hand. Her lowered eyes couldn't see her emotions. Because they are afraid. Bae-yunj could break into their computer through a chip that was being monitored. They should have known better, that she might have taken away all the data on the computer. They wanted to take hostages to change the situation. A few days later, when Bae-yunj returned to Hongda, she found that a large group of people often gathered outside. Master Pei, what are you looking at? On the way, they bumped into Bae-yunj's Lu Yuanxi, who patted her on the shoulder. Bae-yunj glanced at Lu Yuanxi before looking away. Hongda is in debt. At first, Lu Yuanxi did not understand what Bae-yunj meant until he saw the young fans around him. They were like a group of debt collectors. What are you talking about, Master Pei? This year, the Qin family donated a building because of you. With you around, Hongda will not fall, Lu Yuanxi said gently. Bae-yunj, Lu Yuanxi stopped joking. Those people are Qin Youjiao's fans. Don't you know that she has entered the entertainment industry? I don't know. Bae-yunj was not interested in Qin Youjiao's matters. I heard that she's only the female lead of a music video. But the singer is quite popular, and everyone likes this music video. So she has a wave of fans. Lu Yuanxi had seen other boys watch Qin Youjiao's music videos many times. It had to be said that Qin Youjiao had the face of a first love. It was a face that straight men could not resist. Deskmate, why don't you enter the entertainment industry too? Your second brother's music video might become even more popular. Chapter 376. Lu Yuanxi started to come up with bad ideas. However, with Bae-yunj's looks, she did have the capital to become famous in the entertainment industry. Even Qin Youjiao's face, which was that of her first love, would look plain next to Bae-yunj. It's too troublesome, Bae-yunj said slowly. Lu Yuanxi, who already knew that Bae-yunj was lazy, was not surprised. However, before Lu Yuanxi could speak, Teacher Wen's anxious voice could be heard not too far away. Bae-yunj, why are you still here? Didn't you see the notice I sent you? Do you have to go to Yun University today? Bae-yunj asked in return. Yun University? Yes. The few of you who won prizes in the physics competition can follow the lead teacher to visit Yun University. If you perform well, the chances of independent enrollment next year will be higher. Hearing Teacher Wen say this, Lu Yuanxi, who was beside him, finally felt the difference between him and his deskmate. Just a few days ago, they were deskmates who had been scolded together. Now his deskmate had become a top student, and he was the only one struggling alone in the sea of learning. Now, Bae-yunj furrowed her eyebrows unconsciously. Yes, the school bus is waiting for you. Let's hurry. With that said, Teacher Wen pushed Bae-yunj towards the school bus in the distance. Seeing this, Lu Yuanxi's eyelids twitched unconsciously. His determination to study hard and catch up to Bae-yunj became even stronger. Outside the school bus. Principal, are we really bringing Bae-yunj over? But Bae-yunj's results. She did not know if it was true or not. The lead teacher was reluctant, afraid that Bae-yunj would embarrass Hongda and embarrass her. What can we do? The second, third, and sixth place are all going. Are you going to let the first place not go? The principal smiled insincerely. 516 now. He was the one who was most worried about what would happen. If Bae-yunj could admit that she had cheated at the award ceremony last time, it would not affect Hongda too much. But now, if Bae-yunj was slapped in the face at Yun University and found out that she was not up to standard, Hongda's enrollment rate would be affected. These top universities hated students who cheated the most. They also hated schools that taught such students. At this moment, the principal only hoped that Bae-yunj would be sick today. But in the next second, The principal saw Teacher Wen happily pulling Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj's bright and beautiful face did not look happy, but Teacher Wen was really happy. Then I'll leave Bei to you, Teacher Han. Teacher Wen was like an old with a cheering with. This was with the only with them with her with. Bei Yunj to her. Seeing this, after Yunj of course it, mean the school bus, when Cheng Zihuai and the rest saw that Bei Yunj had actually come, their expressions did not look too good. The winners of this year's physics competition were usually the top students who thought they were better than others. But there was an accident. The famous Bei Yunj from class 7 got first place. How dare she come? A girl who happened to be in 10th place glanced at Bei Yunj jealously and couldn't help but say sharply. For this physics competition, she had stayed up late for a month to do questions just to get a place. But what about Bei Yunj? Who would believe that she didn't get this award through connections? Chapter 377. Cheng Zihuai clenched his fists, the veins on the back of his hands popping out, but his handsome face did not lose his composure. Seeing that Cheng Zihuai was ignoring her, the girl sat aside awkwardly. At this moment, Leia and Qin Youjiao, who were in front, also had their own thoughts. Yaya, do you want to eat some? Qin Youjiao took out a box of biscuits and asked. Leia's lips moved and she stared at her intently. Aren't you angry that Bei Yunj took first place? Qin Youjiao's hand froze. Soon, she hid the gloominess in her eyes and smirked. Why should I be angry? If she really did it with her ability, it's useless for me to be angry. Then, Leia was about to refute when she heard Qin Youjiao continue to giggle. Her tone was slightly cold. But if it wasn't for, if she dared to come today, would you be afraid that she wouldn't expose herself? Qin Youjiao's voice was very soft, and only Leia could hear it. What do you mean? Leia could not help asking again. There's an exchange competition at Yin University today. We should go and take a look. Qin Youjiao deliberately observed Leia's expression and caught a flash of light in her eyes. Seeing this, she smirked and said nothing more. Bei Yunj was indeed bold. She was not afraid to barge into a place where academic experts gathered. Soon, the school bus stopped at Yin University. Everyone got out of the bus one by one and could not help looking around. Although Hongda High School was already the most stylish high school in the city, it still paled in comparison to such a top university. The teacher in charge turned around and saw several students with expectant expressions. She smiled. You're all the top students in Hongda. It's actually not that difficult to enter Yin University. Qin Youjiao and the rest noticed that the teacher in charge paused halfway, and her tone became stiff because of Bei Yunj. Don't worry, Teacher Han. We'll work hard. Qin Youjiao smiled. The teacher in charge nodded, and the teacher from the admissions office brought them around Yin University. Suddenly, Leia could not help but ask, is there a competition at Yin University today? The teacher from Yin University was stunned for a moment before he said with a smile, it seems like you're quite concerned about Yin University. Right. Indeed, there is an exchange competition today. It's the mathematics department's exchange competition. Which school are you competing with? Another person asked curiously. To be able to compete with Yin University, it must be a top university. The teacher's expression froze. It's Neely University. After saying this, the others subconsciously sucked in a breath of cold air. Neely University was the top school in our nation, and also the top school in the world. Moreover, his ace major was mathematics. The air froze. Not long after, Cheng Zihuai asked, can we go and take a look? Of course you can. However, the participants are all juniors and seniors. You might find it boring. His words were very tactful. He was probably trying to say that they probably wouldn't understand it either. It's okay. A dark light flashed across Cheng Zihuai's eyes. In fact, until now, Cheng Zihuai was still hesitating whether to apply for computer science or mathematics. After all, his talents in both fields were recognized as good. All right, I'll take you there. The teacher from Yin University nodded and didn't really care. Subsequently, when they entered a hall, they found 30 to 40 students sitting in front of them. Among them, more than 10 to 20 blonde students were especially eye-catching. especially the proud expressions on their faces. Chapter 378. The moment Cheng Zihuai and the others entered, they felt that the atmosphere was not right. When the teachers of Yin University saw their students' solemn and ugly expressions, they immediately knew what was going on. Neely University's mathematics department could be said to be domineering. In recent years, the students have been especially outstanding. In the past 10 years, Yin University had only produced Luo Qingshu, who crushed Neely University's mathematics department. What's going on? Aren't you going to answer the questions? The teacher lowered his voice, his tone a little angry. I've already sent someone to look for Jian Shi, but I don't know where she went. Hearing the students say this, the teacher could not help but press the space between his eyebrows. Now, Yin University was relying on Jian Shi alone to regain their face. In the previous physics department debate competition, Jian Shi was also the one who controlled the entire scene. However, Jian Shi's temper was not good. They could look for her once, but if they did it too many times, she would ignore them completely. Where's Jian Shi? Has anyone seen Jian Shi? The teacher flew into a rage on the spot and asked in the group chat. However, there was no trace of Jian Shi at all. 10 minutes later, the other students from other schools who had won the physics competition also came. But the teachers of Yin University were still in a rage, looking for Jian Shi. Leia, who was in the back row, could not help but ask, is this Jian Shi very powerful? Unexpectedly, Cheng Zihuai spoke. Yes, she's a freshman at Yin University. She got first place in the computer department and skipped a grade. These words made several people unable to help but feel envious. Skipped a grade? Didn't that mean she was as old as them? Moreover, this exchange competition was for the 3rd and 4th years, but everyone was waiting for a freshman to save the day. This was too powerful. Where's Jian Shi? Have you guys gone to the computer department to look for her? The teacher was so anxious that his head was about to explode. We've looked for her. She's not here. The student who ran over panted. This bad girl is definitely going against me. Yin University's teacher's face was almost distorted. She must have remembered that she was late last time. Is there a need for that? The students were speechless. If they had known this would happen, they would not have done it in the first place. In the back row, Bei Yunja's eyebrows twitched as she sent a message. Where are you? In less than a minute. Jian Shi, playing games in the dormitory / Jian Shi. Teacher, what's wrong? Bei Yunj thought for a moment and continued to send her messages. Do you feel like you've forgotten something? Jian Shi, yes. Jian Shi. I forgot to miss teacher YGG today, Shy. Bei Yunj. At this moment, Bei Yunj listened to Professor Yin talk about Jian Shi's cruel deeds, while complaining about how hard it was to be Jian Shi's teacher. Every time he called Jian Shi up to answer a question, Jian Shi would throw him a puzzled look that said, "How can you ask such a question?" This made him deeply doubt his teaching standards. Sometimes, a teacher would break down in an instant. I can't do anything about it. What if she finds fault with me during class? Yin University's teacher was on the phone with the school's leader. He chuckled. Respect my teacher? Are you sure who Jian Shi treats as her teacher? He must have had 8 lifetimes of bad luck to be Jian Shi's teacher. Bei Yunj, who was listening and watching Jian Shi's bombardment of messages, was speechless. At this moment, suddenly, Cheng Zihuai stood up and said in a gentle and steady voice, Teacher, can I solve it the first time? Chapter 379. Hearing this, Teacher Yin was stunned for a moment and looked at Cheng Zihuai. You, even an ordinary 3rd-year student of Yin University, would find it difficult to solve these questions. A 3rd-year student from Hengda could solve it? At this moment, a student from Neely University waved casually and smiled lazily and confidently. If anyone knows how to do it, you can go up and do it. Teacher Yin's expression did not look too good, but he could only nod in agreement. Then go and try it. Under everyone's gaze, Cheng Zihuai went up to look at the questions for a while. The corners of his lips curled up as he picked up the chalk on the table. Everyone was curious, wanting to know if this person could really solve it. At the same time, Bei Yunj received another message from Jianxi. Jianxi, teacher, where are you now? Bei Yunj lowered her eyes and replied to the message. Your school's conference hall. Jianxi? Sigma. LLL. Jianxi, who was playing dungeons in the dormitory, did not hesitate. She immediately picked up the small flower umbrella and ran out. Seeing this, her roommate, who was paralyzed on the bed, sat up in shock. Jianxi, where are you going? I'm going to find someone. Those who did not know better would think that she had gone to see her idol. In the conference hall, Cheng Zihuai put down the chalk and smiled warmly and generously. Teacher, I'm done. As soon as he finished speaking, the 10 to 20 students in front could not help but observe Cheng Zihuai's steps carefully. Then they were stunned. Someone exclaimed, he really did it. It was not only the students from Yin University. Even the students from Neely University did not look too good after seeing Cheng Zihuai's solution. Reading website. Someone actually solved it. Hearing these discussions, Cheng Zihuai only smiled and walked down the stage naturally. Teacher Yin looked impressed. Student, what's your name? Cheng Zihuai, a third-year student from Hengda. Hearing this, Teacher Yin nodded and sighed. Your future is limitless. Your future is limitless. He was only in his third year of high school and already had such standards. It was indeed incredible. The mathematics department professor, who had been watching from the side as a judge, could not help but look at Cheng Zihuai with bright eyes. This was also a talented person. The mathematics department professor took note of Cheng Zihuai's name and appearance, preparing to recruit him next year. Below the stage, there was also a commotion, especially the girls. When they saw that Cheng Zihuai was handsome and was a top student, their hearts pounded. He's so handsome and has such a high IQ. That's of course. Hunda's top student. Do you think it's a joke? Another girl said sneakily. Also, he's a rich second-generation heir. His family is super rich. Isn't this the norm for the male lead of a school novel? I love it. But speaking the competition. How? Someone. Then, She smiled awkwardly and braced herself to continue watching the match. She knew it. She should not have brought Bei Yunj this time. Did she think that Bei Yunj had not embarrassed Hengda enough? Chapter 380. The next moment, the student representative of Neely University stood up and looked at Cheng Zihuai sharply. You're very capable. Cheng Zihuai was fluent in English, and his attitude was neither servile nor overbearing. It's just a coincidence. Is that so? The boy from Neely University smiled again. Although you answered this question correctly, Yin University's score is still a lot lower than ours. If you want to catch up, you have to at least catch up with us by 7 questions. Neely University's mathematics department was after all a trump card. Yin University was indeed about to lose badly in this exchange competition. If your school agrees, I'm willing to be a substitute for the seniors of Yin University. Cheng Zihuai's humble words made the seniors, who had been slapped in the face by a third-year student, look better. Their impression of him also improved. Up to you. It doesn't matter who you substitute. The blonde boy sneered and gestured for his people to change the question. Seeing the attitude of the Neely University students, the others did not look too good. Yin University was the top university in Country A. Now that they were being looked down on by the students of Country R, they were also provoking Country A's academics. What's there to be proud of? Student Cheng might even be able to do it. That's right. Neely University is superior to others? The students in the back rows who knew nothing about Neely University's mathematics said disdainfully. However, the students of Yin University's exchange competition had grave expressions and were about to break down. All these years, Neely University's mathematics department had indeed been crushing Yin University. They indeed had the right to be arrogant soon. 2 new questions were written on the blackboard. This made the originally calm Cheng Zihuai's expression darken as he clenched his fists subconsciously. Even the mathematics department professor of Yin University could not keep his expression straight. Meanwhile, the mathematics department professor of Neely University smiled confidently. Suddenly, then do any of you know these 2 questions? The blond boy turned his head and curled his lips. A dark look flashed across his eyes. Trending searches, it was obvious that Neely University had already started to bring out the final question. However, after Bei Yunj saw the question on the blackboard clearly, his gaze became intriguing, and he snorted softly. No one noticed Bei Yunj's movement. Everyone's attention was focused on the question on the blackboard. The professor from the mathematics department of Yun University had a sullen expression on his face. He clenched his fists tightly. Even he might not be able to solve this problem within the allotted time. Classmate, can you continue? Neely's student clearly bore a grudge against Cheng Zihuai and deliberately asked him. Cheng Zihuai pursed his lips unconsciously. His expression did not look too good as he froze. This question he had no thoughts at all. It seems that none of you know how to do it. Neely's student said sarcastically. Suddenly, someone said, Student Cheng is only second in the competition. How about the first place try? Yes. Wasn't there still a competition for first place? You've already gotten first place, so why are you still hiding? A few students at the side began to chime in. When the teacher in charge heard this, he was so nervous that he almost died. He looked at Bei Yunj instinctively, but he didn't expect this ancestor to be so calm and composed, without the slightest bit of fear. Subsequently, Teacher Yun's eyes also looked at Bei Yunj, thinking about something. Suddenly Qin Yug laughed coquettishly. Yes, Yunj, do you want to try? Don't be so petty. Why are you hiding it? Instantly. Chapter 381. Then Bei Yunj only turned around, a faint smile on her face as she glanced at her calmly. There was no disdain in her eyes, but there was a lazy look in her eyes that said she could not be bothered with her. This made Qin Youjiao feel extremely disrespectful, and she was even more furious. Qin Youjiao's smile froze, and she continued to say softly, Yunj, don't tell me you can't understand what's written on it. However, the people in the back row heard everything clearly. The first place in the competition couldn't understand it? Even the second place could answer a question, but she couldn't even understand it? Instantly, everyone was very suspicious of Bei Yunj, the first place in the competition. What's the hurry? The person who knows how to do it is here. Bei Yunj said slowly. Hearing this, a trace of ridicule flashed past Qin Youjiao's eyes. Really? Even the teacher can't find someone who knows how to do the questions. Do you know who knows how to do it? Instantly, someone couldn't help but mock. If you don't know, you don't know. Why are you looking for a reason? Is this first place in the competition real or fake? It's almost time to answer the questions. She said that someone knows how to do it now. Later, Yun University will lose 2 points to Li University. Is it her fault? The malicious criticism around them was endless. Even the students of Yun University could not help but turn around and glance at Bei Yunj, their eyes filled with disgust. Did a cheating student have the right to sit here? Seeing the situation on the stage, Cheng Zihuai only glanced at Bei Yunj calmly, before he continued to observe the question. After all, Bei Yunj deserved it, and had nothing to do with him. At this moment, Qin Youjiao seemed to have vented her anger, and asked with a smile. Then if she didn't come, would you go up and answer the question? Suddenly, a melodious female voice rang out. Teacher? Everyone turned around, and saw a girl holding a flower umbrella. She looked very exquisite. Then, DM in the back row, Jian, she saw the figure of the person she was looking for. Her eyes lit up and she walked forward. Old. Before Jian she could finish her sentence, she was suddenly grabbed by the back of her collar. She stared at Bei Yunj pitifully, but she was directly dragged to the front row. Jianxi, if you can make Yun University proud this time, we'll write off the matter of you being late and leaving early last time. Seeing that Bei Yunj was getting further and further away from her, Jianxi's expression turned ugly. I don't want it. Teacher Yin, it would be great if he could strangle this guy to death with his own hands. If you go and help, I'll give you extra points. Jianxi asked. What's the use of adding it? First, there was no one else but her. Yunda's teacher took a deep breath. Elective course exemption. How about it? Teacher, I think you should find someone else. Before Jianxi could finish speaking, the phone in her pocket suddenly vibrated. She subconsciously took it out to take a look. Why, Gigi, give it a try. If you can do it, I'll take you to the maps of the God's dungeon. Jane paused for a moment. Then, before Teacher Yun could continue persuading her, she suddenly looked up. Teacher, I think I have to protect the honor of my alma mater. Teacher Yun was speechless. What was wrong with her now? However, this was just the right time. Everyone below the stage could not help but be curious as they watched Jianxi walk up the stage. The Jianxi that Teacher Yun had been talking about just now was this girl? Was she really that good? Chapter 382. His eyes were gloomy and the veins on the back of his hand popped out. Cheng Zihuai could not figure out why he would rather accept a bad-tempered missy than choose him. At this moment, seeing Jianxi start writing the solution after looking at the questions for a while, the Neely University student froze, and his expression turned ugly. There was actually a student from Yun University who could solve these two questions? Not only were the students from Neely University in disbelief, even the math department professor from Neely University was in disbelief. Which year is this student from? Professor Neely could not help but gasp. Year 1. Computer science student. The voice of the mathematics department professor from Yunhua University trembled slightly. Jianxi was a computer science student, right? He had just sorted out his thoughts for this question, but how did Jianxi solve it? Computer science? The Neely University professor's eyes almost popped out. How could a computer science student solve these questions? Then why didn't this student choose mathematics? Could it be that she was better at computing? The Neely University professor's expression was about to crack. Yes, the Yun University professor said faintly. Back then, he could not beat those old men from the computer science department. However, Jianxi, who was doing the questions, was also a little confused. She wrote exceptionally smoothly. These questions seemed to have been given to her by her teacher before. After answering the first question, Jianxi, who was muttering in her heart, looked at the next question. She felt that this question was more like her teacher's handwriting. Although she was puzzled, Jianxi still quickly solved the second question. I'm done. Jianxi put the chalk back and looked at the professors beside her. The Yun University professor suppressed the surging emotions in his heart and nodded calmly. Yes, not bad. However, when he saw the two perfect solutions on the blackboard, the expression of the Neely University student representative changed, and he stood up instinctively. How is this possible? Luan Nua, the Neely University professor shouted warningly. Hearing this, Luan Nua sat down again with an ugly expression. He grabbed the handle of the chair weakly, as if he had suffered a blow. The Yun University professor could not help but stand up and walk to Jianxi's side. Where did you learn these questions from? My teacher taught me. Jianxi frowned and felt even more confused. Previously, her teacher had said that although she studied computer science, she had to be well-rounded. Therefore, she had to know a little about these basic questions. Otherwise, it would be embarrassing in the future. Your teacher? Yun University's professor was stunned. At the mention of her teacher, Jianxi's eyes lit up. She was obviously happy. Yes, my teacher is also a computer science major. Yun University's professor. Why would someone who majored in computer science have to teach students this level of mathematics? Only Cheng Zihuai's handsome face darkened when he heard this, and he felt upset in his heart. Others might not know who teacher Jianxi was, but he knew very well. If he had been the one to choose back then, Jianxi would not be the one standing in the limelight now. Cheng Zihuai gritted his teeth as an unknown anger rose in his heart. The Yun University professor put on a fake smile. What else does your teacher usually teach you? Mathematics, physics, and chemistry. I teach them occasionally. Jianxi added. You can even bring me to dungeons. Yun University's professor. Where did this deity come from to subdue this little devil? P.S. Good boys, remember to buy tickets. Chapter 383. Your teacher is really omnipotent. After hearing this, the professor of Yun University thought that Jianxi's family had found an incredible teacher for her. That's right. If not for the fact that the competition was still going on, the professor of Yin University would have thrown the fangirl-looking Jianxi out. All right, then continue answering the questions. Don't embarrass your teacher. The professor of Yin University left as if he was escaping. Jianxi was speechless. For the next few questions, it was as if Jianxi had cheated. It was all her personal showtime. When the mathematics department students saw this, their faces were almost numb. They even had a bold thought. Could it be that those who studied computer science were better at mathematics? However, on second thought, this was not right. Previously, during the physics exchange competition of Yin University, Jianxi was the one who controlled the entire competition. The mathematics department students were speechless. What kind of damnable existence was this? However, Jianxi suddenly stopped when she was 2 questions away from tying the score. This question looked a little familiar, but she did not know how to solve it. Seeing that Jianxi finally stopped writing, the gloomy Leonard heaved a sigh of relief. The corners of his lips curled up as he looked lazily at the hesitant girl on stage. This question was indeed not simple. However, he did not expect that someone from Yin University would be able to solve this question. At this moment, Jianxi hesitated for a moment and slowly wrote down the steps to answer the question. However, halfway through, she could not continue. She pursed her lips and suddenly turned her head, as if she was looking at someone. In the back row, a certain someone who met her gaze was speechless. After a while, Bei Yunj glanced at the question and was about to ask Jianxi to come down when she heard Leonard say deliberately, "It seems that the students of Yin University are only SOSO?" Hearing this, Jianxi's gaze turned cold as she looked at Leonard. Qi Yan was reading. Immediately after, before Jianxi could speak, a lazy voice sounded from the back row. "So, are you going to solve the question yourself?" As soon as he finished speaking, the atmosphere in the venue suddenly froze. Everyone subconsciously turned to look at Bei Yunj. They did not expect Bei Yunj to interrupt at this moment. A hint of panic flashed across Leonard's eyes, but it quickly disappeared. "How can I not know the questions we came up with? Are you sure you came up with this question?" The corners of Bei Yunj's lips curled up. Her beautiful and soul-stirring eyes carried a hint of confusion. Her lazy glance was enough to inexplicably frighten people. "You," Leonard flushed. However, Qin Youjiao, who was in the back row, had her eyes turn cold as she sneered in her heart. What was Bei Yunj trying to do at this time? Even Jianxi could not do it. What ability did she have to mock the students of Neely University? However, just as everyone was having different thoughts, the professor from Yin University spoke. "Professor Omar, this question shouldn't have been set by the students. And it shouldn't have been set by you, right?" Everyone was confused. They didn't know what the Yin University professor meant. However, they saw that Professor Omar's face had also turned pale, and he did not explain anything. "As far as I know, this seems to be an example in someone's academic thesis," the professor from Yin University continued in a deep voice. When everyone heard this, they fell into deep sighs and unconsciously began to discuss secretly. Not long after, someone exclaimed, "It's that thesis." In an instant, the atmosphere in the venue was like hot water in a pot boiling. It was this person again. Chapter 384. Hearing this, the person who had exclaimed just now turned around and smiled slightly. "At first, I thought so too. Until last time, my senior brother's graduation thesis seemed to be about several major problems related to nonlinear functional analysis. He said that it would be difficult to make a breakthrough in the next 50 years. In the end, she published a major thesis in this area last month. The breakthrough was very comprehensive, and my senior brother is preparing to rewrite it." Everyone was speechless. This sounded really tragic. "Ha, that's nothing. Because of her, our computer science department's question bank has rewritten hundreds of questions this year." The students watching from the back row put on a fake smile. "I wonder how many students will fail this year because of her." Yeah, this year's computer science students don't want to acknowledge anyone else. They only acknowledge her. After listening to the conversation between the 2 people in the back row, Everyone felt an inexplicable chill run down their spines. What kind of god was this? However, Bei Yunj could hear the angry tone of the student just now. She glanced at them faintly before looking away quickly. This question indeed appeared because of. But that example question is different from the one we came up with. Professor Omar explained. Hearing this, the professor of Yun University also looked at the question on the blackboard seriously. He then turned on his phone and searched for the example question. He found that there was indeed a difference between the two questions. The professor of Yun University gave a fake smile. It's different. However, your school did think highly of our Yun University by getting the professor to come up with the questions personally for this exchange competition. Professor Omar's expression did not look good, but he could not refute. After all, in principle, teachers could not set questions for students. Suddenly, Leonard said, since the student on stage doesn't know how to answer, I wonder if the student in the back row is willing to come up and answer? He stared at Bei Yunj gloomily. If it wasn't for her, no one would have guessed that this question was an imitation. However, hearing this, Jianxi could not help but glance at him with admiration before she fell silent. He really knew how to kick an iron plate. He even had to choose the hardest one. He imitated someone else's example question, and even got the real person to answer it. His courage was really shocking. Seeing that Leonard seemed to be staring at Bei Yunj, Qin Youjiao, who was in the back row, suppressed the smile on her lips and remained silent. They were quietly waiting to see how Bei Yunj would embarrass herself in public. Under everyone's gaze, Bei Yunj said slowly, I can't solve it. As soon as he finished speaking, many people's eyes were filled with mockery or disgust. However, before anyone could mock her, they saw the corners of her eyes curl up again. Her smile did not reach her eyes. Wrong question. How do you want to solve it? Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Wrong question. Soon someone sneered, saying that she got the questions wrong, just because she doesn't know how to answer them. Where did Hongda get such an embarrassing student? Is this woman crazy because she wants to be in the limelight? How dare you say such things? I'm impressed. Where did this weirdo come from? The crowd continued to discuss. Leonard also snorted, thinking that Bei Yunj was ridiculous. Mistake. All of these questions have answers. Student, are you overconfident? Or are all the students in country so confident? Instantly, the expressions of the other students from country present changed. However, Professor Omar suddenly stood up and smiled at Bei Yunj. Student, there won't be any mistakes in this question. Chapter 385. Seeing Bei Yunj openly questioning a professor from Nili University, Cheng Zihui snorted and looked away. She's courting death. He did not know why this woman could always cause trouble. Qin Youjiao smiled as well, but the ridicule hidden in her eyes was self-evident. At this moment, Professor, aren't you going to calculate it again? Professor Omar was unhappy to be questioned like this, and only maintained his smile. If you think it's wrong, why don't you go on stage and try? These words were also reminding Bei Yunj not to speak if she did not understand. After all, this question required a lot of calculations, and he did not want to waste time. Who knew? Bei Yunj really stood up and walked slowly towards the stage, picking up the chalk on the table. Seeing this, a dark look flashed past Leia, who had been silent all this while. She asked unconsciously, does she really know how to do it? Qin Youjiao chuckled. Yeah, others might have the ability, but it's impossible for Bei Yunj. At this moment, Bei Yunj glanced at the question and circled the wrong data and symbols. Then, she started to write down the process of answering the questions unhurriedly. However, when Bei Yunj circled the first data, Professor Omar stood up instinctively, and his expression changed. He trembled unconsciously and clenched his fists tightly. Soon, he hurriedly opened his briefcase and found the solution he had written back then. With this look, he realized that he had written the solution wrong, so he happened to get an answer. Suddenly, Professor Omar's expression changed, and he looked up at the girl who was answering on stage. However, Bei Yunj wrote half of the blackboard and furrowed her eyebrows unconsciously. Then, she tapped 6 dots impatiently and left an answer. Looking at this answer, Professor Omar's mind was in a mess for a moment. He did not know if Bei Yunj had written it right or wrong. On the other hand, but his answer just now was indeed wrong. At the same time, the professor from Yin University realized belatedly that there was a mistake in this question. But how did this girl recognize it at a glance? Omar, did she answer this question correctly? The professor from Yin University suppressed his shock and asked Professor Omar. Professor Omar turned his head. Why don't you do the math with me? Yin University's professor. He saw that the girl had saved a lot of steps and directly wrote down the answer. He thought that there was a special method to solve this problem, so it wouldn't be too difficult. At this very moment, everyone saw that the two professors seemed to be recalculating this question, and they couldn't stop the shock in their hearts. So the question just now was really wrong. It can't be? How is it possible to tell? Then what do you think our professor is doing now? Everyone. He seemed to be solving a problem. It wasn't just the students from Yin University who couldn't sit still. Even the students from Neely University didn't expect this to happen. Their professor made a mistake in the question, but it was pointed out by a young girl on the spot. Impossible, she must have guessed. Seeing this situation, Qin Yojiao could not help but grit her teeth and say. Leia's eyes darkened, and she could not help but look at Bei Yunj, who was sitting beside Jian Shi. About 10 minutes later, with the cooperation of the two professors, they finally solved the answer. They looked up and found that the answer Bei Yunj had written was no different from theirs. At this moment, the two professors felt their scalps turn numb. Chapter 386. For a while, the two professors were a little speechless, but their eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. How could a high school student successfully solve such a question? At the thought of how Bei Yunj had impatiently drawn 6 dots on the blackboard and marked the final answer halfway just now, the two professors' eyebrows almost popped out. Her actions would really give people the illusion that the questions were not too difficult. Professor, is her answer correct? Leonard still insisted on asking. Then, he glanced at Bei Yunj with a dark gaze. He did not believe that someone in Country A could solve such a question. What's more, even Professor Omar had a hard time solving this problem. Professor Omar heard this and came back to his senses, but his voice was still trembling. The answer is correct. For a moment, the entire venue fell into a strange cold atmosphere. Then it quickly boiled over. What the hell? The two professors had just solved this question together for more than 10 minutes. But Bei Yunj went up to write for less than 5 minutes and came up with the correct answer. F***CK. Didn't the people from Hongda just say that the first place in this competition was cheating? Then what's the situation now? It's too difficult to cheat, so they decided to use their strength? The students from the other high schools almost scolded, but they still had to maintain a smile on their faces. Was this a new way for Hongda to confuse their opponents? I heard that this is this year's dark horse. She jumped from the bottom to first place and broke the mentality of the other people in Hongda. Everyone. Wasn't this method too wild? After all, Hongda was the best high school in Yuncheng. In the history of the top 40, if they wanted to be ranked higher, they had to grit their teeth and study hard. However, this person had suddenly won first place in the competition without saying anything. Who could withstand such a crazy operation? Not only the students from the other schools, even the lead teacher from Hongda, who felt embarrassed just now, trembled at this moment and looked at this scene in disbelief. So Bei Yunj was really at this level. Then why did she usually do like that? The lead teacher's mood was very complicated. If it was before, she would never believe that Bei Yunj won first place without the Qin family's help. Suddenly, Leonard's voice was sharp and cold. Looks like the students of Yin University aren't that good. Only 1 or 2 high school students are passable. As soon as he finished speaking, the expressions of the students and teachers of Country A turned ugly. Luan Nua's words were not only a slap to Yin University's face, but they were also mocking Country A's top university. Sure enough, he was hooting again the next moment. Or is Country A's academic standards starting to decline? Suddenly, a soft snicker from the front row caught everyone's attention. When Leonard saw that the commotion was caused by Bei Yunj again, his face quickly darkened. What do you mean? If you really think that country A is not good enough, why are 7 out of the 10 questions from your school just now replicated? Bei Yunj looked at him calmly. His eyes were curved, but his gaze made people feel inexplicably guilty. You! Leonard's face turned pale. He did not expect to be poked in his sore spot in public. Out of these 10 questions, 7 of them were indeed derived from an academic thesis. Actually, the academic community of Neely University had been discussing this. It was as if he had appeared out of nowhere and shocked the entire academic circle. Chapter 387. This made it difficult for Country R's academic circle, who had always had a sense of superiority, to accept this reality. How did such a genius appear in Country A? Back then, as Marcus's good friend, the principal of Neely University, had also hinted to Marcus to poach her to Country R. But who would have thought that this person's temper was simply unpredictable? She even turned a blind eye to Country R's goodwill. I'm sorry. My student was too rude. Suddenly, Professor Omar stood up and bowed to everyone. Seeing that Omar's attitude was good, the expressions of the others improved slightly. However, Luan Nua gritted his teeth and stared at Bei Yunj with dark eyes. It was his first time being slapped in public. And it was such an arrogant woman. Professor Omar turned around and asked Bei Yunj, "Do you like this student very much?" Bei Yunj said, "It's all right." Jian Shi, who was sitting beside him, forced herself to stop the smile on her lips. If you want to engage in scientific research in the future, why don't you consider our Neely University? With that said, Luan Nua turned around immediately, his tone filled with disbelief and disapproval. Professor, the professor of Yin University, who was drinking tea, was caught off guard and almost spat it out. The professor of Yin University was speechless. How could someone be so shameless as to poach someone so brazenly in front of others in another school? The students in the back seat were also excited. They never thought that they would be able to see the noble and cold Neely University poach someone personally in their lifetime. Omar, are you crazy? The professor of Yin University blocked Professor Omar's gaze and gave a fake smile. Professor Do, did your Yin University give this student an admission letter? Omar smiled and straightened his back, not feeling guilty at all. If not, then Neely University has one now. Professor Do rejected immediately. No, dream on. Don't even think about it. Seeing the two famous schools fighting for students, the other students felt like their hearts were about to jump out of their chests. As for Qin Yojiao, her eyes darkened as she clenched her fists tightly, her nails almost sinking into her flesh. How could this be? Bei Yunj could solve a question that even Cheng Zihuai could not understand. Could it be that Bei Yunj had been pretending for so many years? Was she playing with them on purpose? Jiao Jiao, do you know that Bei Yunj knows this? Cheng Zihuai's handsome expression was ugly. He never thought that he would be defeated by Bei Yunj one day. Qin Yojiao bit her lip and smiled. I don't know much about her, but she's a very purposeful person. Cheng Zihuai thought about this for a long time before looking at the scene in front of him gloomily. He sneered. What do you mean by having a strong motive? You're just vain. In order to make herself look like a genius, she has really worked hard for so many years. Hearing this, Qin Yojiao only smiled. Not too long later, everyone of Chung of Life C Professor, of Su of Professor of C of C of C of C C C C Professor C. Why are you here? Professor Do was stunned at first. Then, he tugged at Si Qingyan and sneered in exasperation. Professor C, you have to be careful during the next computer science exchange competition. Do you know? There's still such a shameless person in this world. Who dares to poach someone from my mathematics department in front of me? Everyone was speechless. He was using the fact that the professor from country or didn't understand their language to scold him. Chapter 388. Si Qingyan had a bad feeling when he heard that. Who are you fighting for? Professor Do pointed at the person beside Jian Shi and said with a smile. This student. How is it? Not bad, right? In the next second, Si Qingyan and Bei Yunj exchanged glances. Bei Yunj was speechless. Si Qingyan was speechless. Si Qingyan's expression almost distorted. If this ancestor was poached into the mathematics department, wouldn't that old master in the institute whip him to death? Si Qingyan smiled gently. Professor Do, don't be anxious. You have to think on the bright side. Maybe this student isn't interested in mathematics? Professor Do was speechless. What kind of dog shit was he talking about? Student pay. Tell me if you want to stay in Yuncheng or go to our nation. Yuncheng. The moment Bei Yunj finished speaking, before Professor Do could be happy, he heard her continue. But I want to study computing. In an instant, Professor Do froze and his smile froze. In the back row, Cheng Zihuai furrowed his eyebrows and looked at Bei Yunj with a cold and mocking gaze. Bei Yunj kept saying that she didn't like him at all. Then why did she enroll in computing? He never knew when Bei Yunj had such a hobby. Beside him, Qin Yojiao suddenly said, Zihuai, you'll also choose computing, right? Cheng Zihuai's eyes were filled with disdain as he looked away from Bei Yunj. It seems like we're really fated, Qin Yojiao said with a smile. Until the end. When Professor Omar heard Bei Yunj's choice, he was still reluctant to let go of such a good seedling. Seeing that these two professors were finally willing to continue hosting the exchange competition, Si Qingyan turned around calmly. Baidu. He instructed Bei Yunj, don't come to the next computing competition. Bei Yunj was speechless. How can I do that? Then what should I do? Jianxi widened her eyes. If her teacher wasn't around, why would she participate in the competition? What do you mean what to do? Do you know how difficult it is to deal with a computer professor at Herman University? Si Qingyan smiled. He didn't want to be entangled by that person at all. Jianxi. The exchange competition ended. Hengda's school bus was very quiet. The girl who had been talking about Bei Yunj along the way didn't look too good either. She sat at the back of the group without saying a word. Bei Yunj, were you at this level in the past? The teacher asked stiffly. More or less. Bei Yunj didn't try to hide it. But she wasn't interested in talking about it either. Seeing this, the teacher in charge could only nod his head silently and tactfully stopped asking. Until they returned to Hengda. The principal welcomed her excitedly and happily. Teacher Han, you've worked hard today. It's my duty. The principal did not notice the expression of the teacher in charge, and said with a smile, I heard that the students in our school have been snatched by Nili University and Yunqing University. Yes. The teacher's eyelids twitched, but he lowered his head even more. Who is it? The principal's face was radiant. The teacher in charge was silent for a moment before he looked up. However, the name he said made the principal's smile freeze. Bei Yunj. After a long while, the principal's smile was a little stiff. Who are you talking about? Chapter 389. The moment he finished speaking, the principal stood rooted to the ground. His mind was in a state of chaos. What? The person that Nili University and Yun University were fighting over was Bei Yunj? At this moment, the principal stared at Bei Yunj's departing figure and felt that this world was a fantasy. How could it be Bei Yunj? Because school was ending soon, Bei Yunj did not stay in the classroom for long before she prepared to leave school. Today there seemed to be fewer fans at the door. At the school gate, Qin Yojiao had just walked out of the door when she saw Mr. Qin's figure. A dark look flashed past her eyes, and she quickened her steps. Dad! Hearing this, Mr. Qin turned around instinctively. He did not expect to see Qin Yojiao. Jiao. Mr. Qin looked awkward. Qin Yojiao held his hand and said with a coy smile. Are you here to pick me up? I came to look for today for something. Mr. Qin felt a little unnatural. He did not tell Qin Yojiao that he had come to Hengda today, because he knew very well that Qin Yojiao and Bei Yunj did not have a good relationship. Who knew? Qin Yojiao suddenly asked. Dad, are you here because Yunj got first in the competition? Seeing that Qin Yojiao wanted to say something but stopped herself, Mr. Qin was a little stunned. What did you say? Guer got first in the competition? The Qin family knew Bei Yunj's results very well. After all, The Qin family was prepared to let Bei Yunj get in through the back door. You don't know. That's true. Why would Yunj tell you? Eldest brother, and the rest won't tell you either, Qin Yojiao said casually. These words unconsciously led Mr. Qin's thoughts, making him think that Bei Yunj's first place in the competition was done by Qin Lian and the rest. On the Wei Chinese website. Ridiculous. Mr. Qin's expression did not look too good. Dad, what happened to you? Qin Yojiao said awkwardly. Did I say something wrong? I didn't know you didn't know about this. Jiao, did you participate in this competition? Mr. Qin took a deep breath and asked. Yes, I got 6th place. This competition was really difficult. Hearing Qin Yojiao's words, Mr. Qin felt even more complicated and upset. Whether it was Gu'er or Jiao, they were both his daughters. But now for Gu'er, Lu Yan was even willing to buy a place in the competition. He didn't care about Jiao's feelings at all. Jiao, your brother went overboard this time. Mr. Qin's brows twitched, and he looked a little tired. It's okay. Big brother, and the rest only like Gu'er now. Anyway, I'm not the biological daughter of the Qin family, so I can't blame anyone. At this moment, when Mr. Qin saw that Qin Yojiao was still suppressing her grievances and smiling at him, he blamed himself even more. Jiao, Dad will always treat you as his daughter. Mr. Qin reached out and caressed Qin Yojiao's head, his voice gentle. Unexpectedly, she met Bei Yunj's eyes the next moment. Seeing this, Bei Yunj's rosy lips curled up, but she walked away quickly. It was as if Father Qin was a complete stranger to her. This knowledge made Mr. Qin's body stiffen. Gu'er, he shouted subconsciously. However, the figure in front of him didn't even look back as she got into the car and left. A strange glint flashed past Qin Yojiao's eyes, but her tone was gentle. Dad, Yunj is like this. She didn't do it on purpose. Hearing this, Mr. Qin could not understand why his daughter had become like this. In the car. Chapter 390. He saw that person from afar, and even chased after her. However, Miss did not even turn back. Does it count? Bei Yunj leaned against the back seat lazily. No one knew if she was asking a rhetorical question, or if she meant something else. Uncle Wang, let's go to the hospital first today. Bei Yunj glanced at the time and said. Okay, Mississippi. Uncle Wang immediately changed his route, and said with a smile. He could tell that Miss Pei was a filial child. She would go to the hospital every 2 to 3 days. On the way, Huashidu called her. Brother? Bei Yunj flipped through the information in her hand and called out again. Yunyan, have you finished school? Hearing the man's words, Bei Yunj finally realized that Huashidu was waiting for her. After returning from the archery hall last time, the man had inexplicably higher expectations for her homework. Brother, I have to go to the hospital first today, Bei Yunj said. The man standing by the French window narrowed his pale-colored eyes lazily and stood with his back relaxed. Has Grandpa Qin recovered? Hearing this address, Bei Yunj felt that something was wrong. However, she still replied, I'm pretty good. These few days, he even asked her to play the maps of the gods with him. That's good. Go ahead. Brother will fetch you back later. Okay. After hanging up the call, Bei Yunj suddenly thought of the hug at the entrance of the archery hall. There were no emotions mixed in it. It was the simplest hug. However, it made her feel inexplicably terrible. Bei Yunj's eyes darkened. At this moment, Huashidu also received another call. It was from Qinyu. Very soon. Music. Huashidu answered the call and asked calmly, What's wrong? Master Do you have time to come out for a gathering? I'll treat you. Qinyu was also in the car. His ink-like arrogant and handsome eyes carried a casual smile. No need. Huashidu rejected him casually. However, Qinyu said seriously, How can I do that? You've worked hard to take care of my sister during this period of time. How can I not show you any gratitude? Hearing this, Huashidu's hand, that was flipping through the documents, stopped. He sensed the other intention behind his words. During this period, the man tapped his fingers on the table, and his eyes turned dark. That's right. We're bringing old master back today. And we're also preparing to bring Gur back. At this point, Qin Yu was even more grateful to Huashidu. After all, I'm embarrassed to trouble you all the time. So let's have a meal together. Let me. Before he could finish his words, the call was suddenly hung up. Qin Yu's smile froze. In the president's office, not long after, Seng Su walked in and looked at the man in front of him. Master Du, what are your orders? Go get the car. We're going to the hospital now. Half an hour later, Bei Yunj stepped out of the elevator and pushed open the door of the ward. He saw that the ward had been cleaned up and was ready to leave at any time. Gur, you finally come. Old Master Qin's eyes lit up when he saw Bei Yunj. He immediately went forward to hold Bei Yunj's hand. However, Bei Yunj noticed that Qin Luyan and the other two were around. All of them were staring fixedly at her. Bei Yunj looked away calmly. Is Grandpa going back? It's about time. Let's go back. Old Master Qin was very happy to be held by Bei Yunj. Seeing that the old master did not even wait for his son when he saw his granddaughter, the brothers also remained silent. Chapter 391. At this moment, before Bei Yunj could speak, the man wearing gold-rimmed glasses beside her suddenly shouted, Gur! Bei Yunj was still very respectful in front of old Master Qin. Bei Yunj turned to look at him. Grandpa's health is still not very good. Do you want to go back to the old mansion and stay with Grandpa for a while? Qin Luyan's low and calm voice was filled with an imperceptible gentleness. When Qin Yu and Qin Lang saw this, they could not help but want to give their eldest brother a thumbs up. As expected of their eldest brother, knowing that Gur was most worried about the old master, he used the old master to coax her home first. Old Master Qin also looked at his eldest grandson hesitantly, his face full of question marks. Who is Luyan talking about? His health isn't very good? Bei Yunj frowned. Qin Luyan said, Although he has just recovered from a serious illness, Grandpa still needs to recuperate for a while. If Gur can accompany him, Grandpa will recover faster. Old Master Qin, who had just despised his eldest grandson for using him to lie, immediately had his eyes light up. Yes, Gur, you've been back for 2 years and Grandpa has been staying in the hospital. I've never enjoyed the joy of family. With that said, old Master Qin coughed violently again, looking extremely weak. Qin Yu and Qin Lang were perplexed. Was his grandson not worthy of having a name? Then, before Bei Yunj could speak, a low voice sounded not far away. Yin Yun. Bei Yunj was stunned for a moment, before she turned around and saw Huashidu and Sing Su walking towards her. Brother, why are you here? Hearing this address, the Qin brothers felt like their hearts had been stabbed. It seemed like Gur had never called them brother in the past month or so. I heard that Grandpa Qin was discharged from the hospital and brought some supplements over. Huashidu was good-looking and his ability was recognized by the older generation. After seeing Huashidu a few times, old Master Qin naturally liked him. Look, even Shidu is more attentive than all of you. Hearing this, the man's lips curled up imperceptibly and his tone was light. It's only right. Before Qin Yu could sense anything, Qin Luyan and Qin Lang felt that there was a deeper meaning to these words. But soon, she saw old Master Qin enthusiastically pulling Huashida downstairs. Let's go. Shida should be free today, right? Why don't you and Grandpa Qin go back to the old mansion for a meal? If Grandpa Qin doesn't mind me disturbing you, of course I'm happy to. This was the first time Seng Su, who was at the back, saw his master Do being so modest. He almost thought that he was dreaming. Bei Yunj also had an illusion. Her brother seemed to be trying to build a good relationship with her grandfather. On the way back to the Qin family's old mansion, old Master Qin and Bei Yunj got into Huashida's car. Over here. The 3 men of the Qin family were silent. How did you meet President Hua? Qin Lian asked. Qin Yu said, we were high school classmates and have always been brothers. So you're not worried about letting Gur stay in a stranger's house? Qin Lian felt that Huashida's attitude towards Gur or the old master was too amiable. It did not seem like the rumored president of the Hua Corporation at all. Sigh, you've been worried 700 or 800 times. Qin Yu could not help but laugh. Don't worry. I've never seen him like anyone since high school. Where did our Gur get the ability to warm up such an iceberg? Chapter 392. One had to know that when he played basketball with Huashidu in the past, half of the girls in the field had come to see Huashidu. Qin Luyan did not speak, but a dark look flashed past his eyes. He still wanted to get Gur back as soon as possible. No matter who he handed Gur to, he would not be at ease. Back at the old mansion, Bei Yunj and Huashidu accompanied the old master and walked in front. But in the next second, when old Master Qin looked up and saw the familiar figure in the living room, his smile froze. It was Qin Yujiao. However, old Master Yin and Yun Nua were sitting beside him. I heard last night that Jiao Jiao passed the International Musicians Association's preliminary audition. Is this true? A trace of admiration flashed past old Master Yun's eyes. It had to be said that Qin Yujiao was the most outstanding in this socialite circle. It's just the preliminary audition. Qin Yujiao smiled. Beside her, Mrs. Qin could not stop smiling when she heard old Master Yun's praise. It's impressive that you can pass the preliminary audition. The International Musicians Association has never recruited anyone from our country, eh? Old Master Yun sighed. Back then, he was also lucky enough to meet people from the International Musicians Association. They were all people who chatted and laughed with the top celebrities in the world. The moment he finished speaking, old Master Yin and the rest noticed old Master Qin and the rest. However, when Yin Nua saw Bei Yunj, a trace of sarcasm flashed past her eyes. Yes, how can ordinary people reach the International Musicians Association? Yin Nua laughed deliberately, and her words sounded a little ear-piercing. Compared to some people who can only be reincarnated into a good family, Jiao Jiao is much better. With that said, 228 Literature Network Yin Nua did not notice that the expressions of the people walking overhead darkened. Only Bei Yunj glanced at Yin Nua with a faint smile and suddenly laughed. Yin Nua's expression changed as if she had been provoked. What are you laughing at? Bei Yunj's voice was lazy. Nothing. Does Miss Yin still want to drink tea? These words sounded hospitable, but Yin Nua remembered how Bei Yunj had splashed hot tea over her head last time. Yin Nua's eyes turned red as she gritted her teeth. You, then she sneered again. Miss Pei is really intolerant. Jiao Jiao has been in the Qin family for 19 years. Isn't she more like the eldest daughter of the Qin family than you? At this moment, old Master Yin didn't say anything, silently agreeing with Yin Nua's words. In the end, his old friend was blinded by blood. So what if her granddaughter wasn't her biological granddaughter? Qin Yujiao had even passed the preliminary examination of the International Musicians Association. Was this still far from winning glory for the Qin family? As for the new daughter, the Qin family had been embroiled in a storm because of her. What could she bring to the Qin family? However, what old Master Yin didn't expect was that old Master Qin would actually get angry. Miss Yin, if you don't want to be a guest of the Qin family, you can leave early. Looking at old Master Qin's cold face, Yin Nua also panicked. The Yin family and the Qin family had been on good terms for so many years, and old Master Qin had always been very gentle to her. However, this was the first time his tone was so cold and distant. Yin Nua felt wronged. I didn't mean that. Old Qin, why are you angry with the younger generation? Old Master Yin laughed, a trace of sharpness in his cloudy eyes as he glanced at Bei Yunj. She was indeed scheming to coax old Master Qin to this extent. Who knew old Master Qin slapped old Master Yun's hand away and said with a dark expression, "Stop trying to smooth things over. No outsider has the right to interfere in our Qin family's matters." Chapter 393. Before anyone could speak, Qin Luyan's voice sounded. Why is Miss Qin here? The moment Qin Yujiao met Qin Luyan's eyes, she felt inexplicably afraid. Brother. Qin Yujiao bit her lip and said pitifully, "Don't chase me away, okay?" Seeing this, old Master Yin thought of Mrs. Qin's request just now and interrupted. The child specially came to welcome old Qin. There's no need to be so distant. Even if they're not biological, they still have feelings for each other. At this moment, Qin Lian smirked, his tone gentle and polite. However, his words made Old Master Yun's expression turn ugly. Old Master Yun is so tolerant. Why aren't you willing to bring your third son's illegitimate son home? After all, he's your biological son. Old Master Yun's expression changed when his scar was exposed in public. He was so angry that he almost trembled. What did this have to do with him? However, hearing Qin Lian's words, Old Master Qin was amused. He said gently on purpose, "Yes, Old Yun, your blood flows in the child's body. Aren't you a beast if you don't even look at her?" With that said, Mrs. Qin's face also turned pale. She had a feeling that Old Master Qin was deliberately hinting at someone. "You." Old Master Yun's face flushed red. He did not expect to be provoked by his good friend. Usually, Old Master Qin knew about this, but he never interfered in other people's family matters, so he would at most ask indirectly. But now Old Master Yun had angered the entire Qin family. How could he not be criticized? "Alang, go and send Miss Qin out," Qin Lian said. However, the moment Mrs. Qin heard this, she immediately stood in front of Qin Youjiao. Why should Jiao Jiao leave? If it was anyone else in the Qin family, they would not be able to deal with Mrs. Qin's pestering. She must love reading. However, Qin Lian was an exception. Qin Lian said calmly, "Mom should have eaten too. Send her out too." Qin Lian. Mrs. Qin was furious. She never thought that she would give birth to such an unfilial son. Suddenly, Mr. Qin, who had come downstairs, frowned. "Lu Yan, is this your attitude towards your mother?" Unexpectedly, Old Master Qin said faintly, "Why? Are you going to scold Lu Yan in front of me? Do you think you're so great just because you're me?" Mr. Qin was taken aback. "Dad, no, that's not what I meant." "Then what do you mean? If you don't want to be a member of the Qin family, then scram. This old man's death has nothing to do with you." Old Master Qin roared angrily. In an instant, the atmosphere in the arena was silent. Old Master Yun didn't expect Old Master Qin to be like a barrel of explosives. Because of the Bei Yunj incident, it was easy to explode. Even Qin Youjiao saw Old Master Qin's dark expression. For a moment, he didn't dare to plead for leniency on his behalf. "Grandpa, calm down. Go sit down first." Bei Yunj saw that the old man was trembling with anger and tried to comfort him. "My Guer is still the filial one." The old man's complexion improved slightly, and he followed Bei Yunj to sit on the sofa. At this time, only then did the two men from the Yun family notice the other man beside the old man. "President Hua, why are you here?" Old Master Yun froze. He had been too concerned about the Qin family's grandchildren just now, and did not notice that the person standing beside Old Master Qin was actually Huashidu. When did the Qin family get close to the Hua family? Chapter 394. Hearing this, Yun Nua looked at Huashidu in disbelief. Why was Huashidu related to Bei Yunj? Yun Nua instantly had mixed feelings, but she could not figure out how Bei Yunj was worthy of these people's favor. "Miss Pei." Old Master Yun caught the main point. Huashidu glanced at Bei Yunj carelessly before he smirked. The young lady is very lovable. At this moment, because of Huashidu's words, Old Master Yun's expression froze. He started to suspect if he had stood on the wrong side from the start. If Bei Yunj could have a good relationship with this person from the Hua family, so what if Qin Youjiao entered the International Musicians Association? I really didn't expect Miss Pei to know President Hua. Old Master Yun's expression froze. But no matter how he thought about it, he could not understand why President Hua was so concerned about Bei Yunj. Could it be because of Bei Yunj's face? Although he had seen many beauties in his life, he had to admit that the face of this real young lady of the Qin family was the most stunning and unforgettable. At this moment, Mrs. Qin did not want all the topics to revolve around Bei Yunj, so she immediately interrupted. "Dad, haven't you always liked Teacher Du Xiao?" This time, Teacher Du Xiao agreed to come to our house for a meal. "Teacher Du Xiao is coming to our place." Hearing this, Old Master Qin furrowed his eyebrows. It was rumored that Du Xiao had always been arrogant and did not go to any dinner parties. Yes, Teacher Du Xiao likes Jiao Jiao quite a lot. Mrs. Qin deliberately gave Qin Yojiao a good impression. However, how could old Master Qin not see through Mrs. Qin's intentions? Then why are you coming to our Qin family? Old Master Qin's tone was cold. The smile on Mrs. Qin's face disappeared, and she could only retreat in order to advance. Dad, if you really don't want to see Jiao Jiao, I promise that Jiao Jiao will never disturb you again. Carefree Book Network. I've already invited teacher Du Xiao over this time. Just treat it as the last time you're giving Jiao Jiao face. Hearing this, old Master Qin could not help frowning, his heart wavering. After all, he had indeed watched Qin Yojiao grow up. But if he agreed, what would Ge think? Suddenly, Bei Yunj said leisurely, "Let him do it." Old Master Qin was stunned. "Who are you, Bei Yunj? I've seen him before." "Who are you know teacher Du Xiao too?" Old Master Qin was surprised. Yes. Yesterday, Du Xiao had even sent her a message asking if they could have dinner together tonight. However, she was just in time to pick up old Master Qin from the hospital, so she refused. As for Promise Clouds, when he heard this, he could not help but laugh mockingly. He was slapping himself in the face to look impressive. Just because he had met Mr. Du Xiao once, he thought that he was Mr. Du Xiao's friend? Mr. Du Xiao had met so many people, but had he ever bothered with anyone? Yin Nuo could not understand how the daughter of the Qin family could be so stupid, unlike the three sons of the Qin family at all. But that's fine too. When teacher Du Xiao came, she would know that she was no match for Jiao Jiao. "Mom, you don't want to know my methods, do you?" A faint mocking look appeared in Mrs. Qin's eyes as she said, "Teacher Du Xiao likes Jiao Jiao a lot, and even praised her for being someone great in the future. This time, I also want to ask teacher Du Xiao if he's willing to take Jiao Jiao as his student." "Of course he's willing. Don't worry, Mrs. Qin. After all, she's the young female pianist that the nation has personally conferred upon her," Yin Nuo said with a smile as her eyes swept over Bei Yunj. However, Chapter 395. Big brother went on a business trip and brought you a lot of gifts. With that said, Qin Lu reached out and gave Bei Yunj a key. "This is the key to the safe. You can set the password for the safe yourself." Hearing this, Bei Yunj furrowed her eyebrows calmly. "Isn't it too expensive?" Usually, most of the things in the safe were gold, silver, and jewelry. However, with old Master Qin around, she could not reject him. "No." Qin Luyan's good-looking eyes turned gentler as he said word by word. "After all, Gu'er is the only elder young miss of the Qin family." With that said, Qin Yojiao's expression changed, and Mrs. Qin's eyes were filled with resentment. Why was even Qin Luyan interfering in Bei Yunj's matters? Big brother is right. No one has the right to criticize the elder young miss of the Qin family. Qin Yu, who was beside her, sneered. Qin Lang was unwilling to fall behind. Third brother bought you a lot of gifts too. Why didn't he think of using the safe directly? It made him think for a long time about how to get so many jewelry. This was not like a club member, who could just use a sack to store gifts. "Thank you." A dark look flashed past Bei Yunj's eyes, but she was thinking about how to repay these things. At this moment, Mr. Qin suddenly said, "Gu'er, I have something to talk to you about in private." "Qin Ting." Old Master Qin furrowed his eyebrows, his gaze turning cold as he called Mr. Qin's name. "Dad, it's not about family matters. Don't worry." With that said, Mr. Qin looked at Bei Yunj. "Who are you?" "Mr. Qin, we can talk here." Bei Yunj's tone was indifferent. Obviously, even if old Master Qin was around, Bei Yunj did not want to give Mr. Qin any face. 596. Mr. Qin's expression froze, and he glanced at Yin Nuo and Qin Yojiao. After a long time he asked stiffly, "Gu'er, you got first in the physics competition?" Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows but only looked at him. This gaze inexplicably made Mr. Qin feel guilty. However, he still braced himself and asked, "Are these results real?" As soon as he finished speaking, the arena fell into silence. Then, old Master Qin slammed the table and stood up. His face was frighteningly dark. "Bastard! How could someone ask their own daughter such a question? Dad, is this really not Lu Yan's doing?" Mr. Qin stared at Old Master Qin and asked. Old Master Qin was about to explode from anger. Mr. Qin suspected that Old Master Qin was also involved in Bei Yunji's ranking. Qin Lian's eyes were filled with sarcasm. He looked up. Dad, do you know Gu'er very well? Father Qin choked. I don't. What makes you think that Gu'er cheated? Or did you hear what Gu'er said? When Qin Lian said the last sentence, his eyes turned to Qin Youjiao. This made Qin Youjiao's face pale, and she panicked unconsciously. I've always known that Gu'er's results weren't that good. Mr. Qin clenched his fists, not daring to look at Bei Yunji's expression. Will she really improve so quickly? Dad, someone told you that Gu'er got first in the physics competition. Did that person tell you that the last time Gu'er was at Yin University, she was fancied by the professors of Neely University and Yin University, and was fighting for her to enroll? Qin Lang's tone was cold and mocking. Qin Youjiao instantly panicked. How did Qin Lang know about Yin University's exchange competition? Chapter 396. Beside them, Qin Lian and Qin Yu looked at Qin Youjiao coldly. Mr. Qin was also stunned. What? Yin University and Neely University were both top elite schools. Both of them wanted Gu'er. Not only Mr. Qin, but even Old Master Yin, who was beside him, was stunned. Neely University? Doesn't one only get an offer if they sign up? Old Master Yin remembered that the granddaughter of a friend he knew had taken 2 years to get into Neely University. But such a school actually took the initiative to offer Bei Yunji. Yes, I heard from Gu'er's form teacher that it's because Gu'er discovered the mistake in the question set by the professor of Neely University, and was the only student who solved it. So the professor of Neely University immediately promised the offer. But Gu'er doesn't like maths, so she rejected it. Qin Lang scratched his silver-white short hair casually, and said proudly with pride. Qin Yu continued quickly, his tone cold. So who's the one who has ulterior motives and is sowing discord? Qin Youjiao felt a chill run down her spine, and she did not dare to look at Qin Yu's eyes. Mr. Qin choked. He did not expect that he had wronged Bei Yunji. Then, before Mr. Qin could think about this carefully, Qin Youjiao suddenly stood up. Biting her lip, she walked in front of Bei Yunji and handed Bei Yunji tea, looking like she was admitting her mistake humbly. Yunji, it's my fault. I mentioned it casually, and didn't explain it to Dad clearly. Don't blame Dad. I apologize to you. I'm sorry. Can you forgive me? Bei Yunji looked up lazily and stared at her leisurely. However, Qin Youjiao was certain that in front of so many people, Bei Yunji would at least pretend to forgive her. Yunji, I didn't mean to target you. Can't you forgive me? Qin Youjiao's eyes turned red as she bit her lip lightly. Beside her, Yin Nua could not stand it anymore. She felt that Bei Yunji was deliberately making Qin Youjiao suffer. Thousands of people at this moment. Bei Yunji picked up the tea Qin Youjiao handed him. The 3 brothers frowned, and were about to remind Bei Yunji. In the next moment, Bei Yunji splashed the tea in his hand onto Qin Youjiao's exquisite face. Qin Youjiao almost screamed, and immediately glared at Bei Yunji fiercely. In his heart, he wished he could cut Bei Yunji into 1,000 pieces. On the other hand, Bei Yunji's bright eyes were languid and her eyes were cold. She looked extremely unruly. She smiled lazily. Miss Qin, do I look like a moral person to you? The Qin brothers. Their worry seemed a little unnecessary. Mrs. Qin, who had just regained her senses, looked at Bei Yunji in exasperation. Bei Yunji, what are you doing? Promise Clouds also stood up abruptly, as if he was standing on the moral high ground. This is too much. Bei Yunji, are you targeting Jiao Jiao because she's easy to bully? She had never seen such an arrogant woman. Someone was apologizing to her, but she actually splashed tea on her face. Miss Yin, you've misunderstood. I only look at my mood when I bully people, not the person. Bei Yunji's red lips curled up, but in Promise Cloud's eyes, it was especially evil. Bei Yunji suddenly. The man beside her, who did not speak much, said softly, Does the daughter of the Yin family like to interfere in other people's matters? Instantly, Old Master Yin could not care less about who was right or wrong in this matter. His expression changed immediately. Yin Nua, what are you doing? Chapter 397. After being reprimanded, Yin Nua looked aggrieved, but she knew that the Yin family could not offend the Hor family, so she could only sit down again. However, she could not help but think sourly. Why was Master Du helping this woman to be unreasonable? This woman was clearly cold-blooded and vicious. Then, Huashida's deep and magnetic voice sounded softly, and it was not difficult to hear the indulgence in it. Yin Yin, don't scare Grandpa Qin. The rest of the people were speechless. President Hua's concern was especially strange. Hearing this, Bei Yunj nodded. Then she turned around and raised her eyebrows lazily. Looking at the drenched Qin Youjiao, she asked considerately, "Do you want to continue apologizing?" Qin Youjiao's face turned green and pale. She took a step back instinctively, afraid that Bei Yunj would splash water on her again. Suddenly, Bei Yunj laughed again. Her tone was neither slow nor slow, but it was arrogant. "Miss Qin, you can go against me as long as you have the ability, but it's not a wise move to put your face in front of me." Hearing this, Qin Youjiao almost couldn't control the hatred in her heart, and her face twisted. Seeing Qin Youjiao trembling with anger, Mrs. Qin's heart ached uncontrollably. She immediately wiped Qin Youjiao's face with a handkerchief and asked anxiously, "Jiao Jiao, how are you?" Before Bei Yunj came, Jiao Jiao had never been so angry. But now Jiao Jiao was being bullied. But other than her, no one else in the family cared about Jiao Jiao. Mrs. Qin gritted her teeth, and could not help but blame this on Bei Yunj. Fortunately, the next moment a voice sounded from the door. "Mrs. Qin." Everyone turned around and saw a thin middle-aged man. "Teacher Du Xiao." Mrs. Qin's eyes lit up, and she immediately went forward. "Why are you here so early?" At this moment, Old Master Qin and the rest also stood up and walked towards the door. This was Du Xiao, a world-class musician. Seeing that everyone was so concerned about Du Xiao, Qin Youjiao, who had a gloomy expression just now, felt much better. There were countless students from Yin University and Neely University. Not everyone can be valued by Teacher Du Xiao and become Teacher Du Xiao's student. At the thought of this, Qin Youjiao's eyes glinted coldly. She knew that her chance to trample Bei Yunj under her feet had come. Compared to her, Bei Yunj would always be an idiot. At this thought, a smile appeared on Qin Youjiao's face. It was only when Du Xiao was welcomed into the living room that she called out sweetly, "Teacher Du Xiao." When Du Xiao saw Qin Youjiao, he also smiled. "Youjiao, I saw that you entered the International Musicians Association's preliminary examination. You're not bad. Do your best." All along, Du Xiao had been amiable towards talented juniors. "It's just a preliminary test. I don't know if I'll have a chance to pass the next round," Qin Youjiao said humbly. "You still have a chance in the second round, but in the third round, more people will be eliminated. You still have to work harder." Du Xiao thought for a moment. "Thank you, Mr. Du Xiao. I will work hard and not let you down." Seeing Qin Youjiao and Du Xiao chatting so happily, the smugness in Mrs. Qin's eyes could not be hidden. However, when she turned around, she realized that her sons were too lazy to look over. "Guer, come and take a photo with second brother. I still lack a screensaver." With that said, Qin Yu did not care if Bei Yunj agreed or not. He hugged her shoulders and his handsome and arrogant face leaned towards Bei Yunj. Chapter 398. Bei Yunj was speechless. From the beginning to the end, Bei Yunj was expressionless. However, Qin Yu didn't care at all. After taking a few photos, he happily set up a screensaver. Seeing this, Qin Lang was unwilling to fall behind. "Guer, I have a few mathematics questions that I don't know. Do you want to teach third brother?" Qin Lang looked at Bei Yunj pitifully. With his young and arrogant short silver hair, he looked inexplicably like a loyal dog. Bei Yunj looked down and saw that there were a few mathematics questions saved in his phone. Seeing this, Qin Yu could not help but curse in his heart. What a scheming B***tch. Qin Lang was from the mathematics department of Yunqing University, but he usually stayed in the club and rarely went to school. However, because of his excellent results, the school turned a blind eye to it. But now, he actually had the cheek to ask Guer questions. Bei Yunj glanced at the question and looked at Qin Lang unconsciously. In the end, she explained it briefly to Qin Lang. After hearing this, Qin Lang was stunned. He did know how to answer this question, but the answer Guer taught him just now seemed to be simpler. Guer, what about the other questions? Qin Lang unconsciously moved closer to Bei Yunj, his happy eyes sweeping over Qin Yu. This was a blatant provocation. Qin Yu laughed coldly in his heart. Did this brat think that he couldn't deal with him? In the next second, Qin Yu turned around and said to Qin Lian, "Brother, Lang seems to have a lot of time recently. Why don't you find something for him to do?" Qin Lian's gaze swept past Bei Yunj and Qin Lang's shoulders quietly. He said calmly, "It's time for Lang to return to the company to gain experience." Qin Lang. One by house, didn't they say that he would familiarize himself with the company after he graduated? Seeing this, Mrs. Qin remembered what Qin Yojiao usually said to her. "Mom, I didn't do anything. Why do eldest brother and the rest only like Yunj and not me?" Eldest brother and the rest didn't like Yunj in the past either. A cold sneer appeared in Qin Mu's eyes. Indeed, Pei Yunj was too capable. She had coaxed her 3 sons into a frenzy. Mrs. Qin made up her mind and turned around. "Teacher Du Xiao must be hungry too, right? Let's eat first." This time, she specially used her connections to find out about many of Du Xiao's favorite dishes. He was just waiting for Du Xiao to be happy before he brought up the matter of taking in a disciple. As long as Du Xiao accepted Jiao Jiao as his student, no one on the internet would dare to compare Jiao Jiao with Bei Yunj. Not long after, everyone gathered around the dining table. At this moment, Du Xiao, who had been surrounded by people talking, suddenly saw a rather familiar face. His eyes widened, but before he could say anything, he was interrupted. "Mr. Du Xiao, please try this dish and see if it suits your taste." Mrs. Qin was also very concerned about Du Xiao. This concerned whether Qin Yojiao could become Du Xiao's student or not. If it was possible, it might even be easy to enter the International Musicians Association. "These are all my favorite dishes." "Thank you, Mrs. Qin." Du Xiao glanced at the dishes on the table and smiled. "You're too polite, Teacher Du Xiao. Jiao Jiao has liked your music since she was young. You can be considered Jiao Jiao's first teacher." "Really? I'm honored." With that said, Du Xiao's eyes landed on Bei Yunj again, wanting to speak. Chapter 399. Du Xiao's expression did not look too good after being interrupted time and time again, but he still asked politely, "What's the matter?" "It's just that our Jiao Jiao also wants to find a suitable teacher now. I wonder if Teacher Du Xiao is willing to teach Jiao Jiao personally?" Mrs. Qin asked with a smile. In her opinion, this matter was very likely to succeed. After all, there were not 1 or 2 peers in the entire country who were more talented than Qin Yojiao. "Why?" Du Xiao frowned unconsciously. At the same time, this question stunned Mrs. Qin. Then, Mrs. Qin said with a smile, "Jiao Jiao is also at a bottleneck now, and it's very difficult for her to break through. She wants to find a teacher to teach her." However, when Du Xiao heard this, he felt that things were even stranger. He could not help but glance at Bei Yunj, who was sitting opposite him. Before he turned back to look at Mrs. Qin, he asked in disbelief, "You're looking for me?" Wasn't the person sitting opposite him ruthless enough? Why did she have to seek someone far away? Mrs. Qin also felt that Du Xiao's attitude was strange. "Yes, other than you, no one is more suitable to be Jiao Jiao's teacher. I'm returning to Countryar tomorrow, so I can't bring your daughter along." Although Du Xiao admired Qin Yojiao's talent, he did not want Qin Yojiao to inherit his legacy. But if he really chose one, Du Xiao could not help but glance at Bei Yunj and start to have evil thoughts. If he could make this person his student, Would it be easier for her to be the president of the International Musicians Association in the future? After feeling a strange gaze from somewhere, Bei Yunj furrowed her eyebrows unconsciously and looked up instinctively. Then, she saw Du Xiao smiling at her. Bei Yunj was speechless. What was he thinking? It's okay. Jiao Jiao can go to country or when she's free. Mrs. Qin could not help saying. Forget it, forget it. Du Xiao hurriedly waved his hands. I can't harm Yo Jiao either. All he could think about now was letting Bei Yunj inherit his position. Where would she find the time to teach her? Seeing Du Xiao's clear attitude, Qin Yo Jiao's eyes darkened, and she clenched her fists instinctively, her expression not too good. She thought that this matter was in the bag. But why did Du Xiao reject her so decisively? She had clearly checked, and knew that Du Xiao wanted to groom a musician. Then why couldn't he choose her? Teacher Du Xiao really doesn't have such a plan? Qin Wanru's mother asked reluctantly. This was clearly a chance for Jiao Jiao to make a comeback. Hearing this, Du Xiao smiled but did not say anything. Suddenly, Qin Yojia spoke. She stared at Bei Yunj, and felt a sense of comfort in her heart. As if she was dragging Bei Yunj into the water. I heard Yunj play the piano last time. It's not bad either. If teacher Du Xiao thinks that I can't do it, why don't you listen to Yunj's piano and consider her? After that, Qin Yojiao was originally waiting for Du Xiao's rejection. But who would have thought? When Du Xiao heard this, he was stunned. He looked at Bei Yunj. Do you really need it? He did not know how good Bei Yunj's piano skills were. But her composition and writing skills were definitely not worse than his. If Bei Yunj wanted to find a teacher, she might have to wait for a musician from the last century to jump out of his grave. Hearing this, the rest of the people were stunned, some confused by Du Xiao's words. Only Qin Yojiao's expression changed subconsciously. A forced smile appeared on her face, as she asked in a slightly stiff voice. You know Yunj? Du Xiao glanced at Qin Yojiao. After confirming that these people didn't know Bei Yunj's identity, he smiled. We met by chance. P.S. There are 2 more updates. Good people, remember to vote. Chapter 400. With that said, the entire venue was a little quiet. Old Master Yun's chopsticks accidentally fell on the table. What was wrong with this new elder young miss of the Qin family? It was clearly rumored in the industry that the fake young lady of the Qin family was extremely talented. The real young lady only had a good life, but she had no ability at all. But just now he heard about the 2 famous schools fighting for Bei Yunj. Now he saw with his own eyes that a top international musician seemed to have a good relationship with this elder young miss. The alarm in Mrs. Qin's heart rang. What you said just now means. Du Xiao could not help but look at Bei Yunj. Guer, do you really want to find a teacher? His eyes were bright as he looked at Bei Yunj expectantly. It was completely different from when he rejected Qin Yojiao righteously just now. Even if he didn't say it, she could tell what Du Xiao meant. Old Master Yun's hands could not help but tremble. He really realized that he had stood on the wrong side. However, looking at Bei Yunj's behavior just now, she was not someone who would accept an apology at all. It was useless even if he turned around to express his goodwill. I don't want to. The girl's languid and clear voice rang out unhurriedly. With that said, Old Master Yun's eyelid twitched, and he could not help but glance at Bei Yunj. Did this person know Du Xiao's influence in the music industry? Didn't she see that Qin Yojiao was trying her best to please Du Xiao and become his student? Why? Du Xiao asked weakly. I'm going to take the college entrance examination soon and want to study hard. Du Xiao was speechless. The rest of the people were speechless. Was this excuse bullying Old Master Du for not knowing about Yin University's competition? 520-inch sigh. This child is insensible. Teacher Du, why don't you give me your contact number? Let me persuade her properly. Old Master Qin suddenly said with a smile. Bei Yunj turned to look at him. Old Master Qin pretended not to see it, and only smiled happily. If Guer became Du Xiao's student, who in this industry would dare to spread rumors about Guer? From the corner of his eye, Du Xiao saw that Bei Yunj really didn't say anything. He seemed to understand something, and shook hands with old Master Qin without batting an eyelid. He smiled gratefully and said, "Really? Then I really have to thank you properly. I'll treat you to a meal when I'm free." When the surrounding people saw this scene, they inexplicably felt that something was not right. Just now, didn't Du Xiao say that he was about to return to our country and was unwilling to accept students because he was afraid of delaying Qin Youjiao? What was going on? Mrs. Qin's expression was also stiff. "Teacher Du Xiao, are you planning to take Yunjin as your student?" "Then just now Jiao Jiao. If we can take him in, we will naturally nurture him as the successor," Du Xiao said happily. In an instant, Qin Youjiao's face paled. To be Du Xiao's successor? Then wouldn't it be very possible for Bei Yunj to become the president of the International Musicians Association? Du Xiao Laosher, how could you? Mrs. Qin's face was a mixture of green and red, and her tone was somewhat flustered and exasperated. She had used her connections to find out what Du Xiao liked, and specially asked him to come to the old mansion. In the end, the person Du Xiao liked now was Bei Yunj. But how could Bei Yunj be better than Jiao Jiao? "Mrs. Qin, don't worry. Miss Qin's standard is still far from the bottleneck," Du Xiao said with a bright smile. However, these words made Mrs. Qin's face turn red and dark. Chapter 401. Did Du Xiao mean that he didn't like her? Then why did he like Bei Yunj? Under everyone's gaze, Qin Youjiao bit her lip and did not ask further. However, her expression did not change. She never thought that Bei Yunj would benefit from her finding Du Xiao. "Let's eat first. What else can we talk about when we eat?" Old Master Qin said with a smile with a rosy face. It was obvious that Old Master Qin did not expect Du Xiao to want to take his granddaughter in as a student. At this moment he was already overjoyed. On the other hand, Old Master Yun's eyes had been fixed on Bei Yunj. He had a feeling that she and Du Xiao did not know each other ordinarily. Otherwise, why would Du Xiao admire Bei Yunj so much? Du Xiao did not even like Qin Youjiao, who was beside him. After the meal, Mrs. Qin and Qin Youjiao's expressions were the worst. In the end, before the Qin brothers could think of a way to get them out, Mrs. Qin left with Qin Youjiao. She did not want to stay in this place anymore. However, Mr. Qin's expression was guilty, taking advantage of the time when Qin Lang and the other brothers were not glued to him. He walked towards Bei Yunj. "Gur, what happened just now?" "Mr. Qin, are you here to apologize to me?" Bei Yunj's gaze was distant, and even her curved eyes did not have a smile. "Yes." Mr. Qin clenched his fists and admitted it. "Thinking about it, it's not the first time you've caused trouble for me." Bei Yunj's red lips curved and her tone was lazy. Compared to apologizing, "I hope that you will disappear from my sight with your beloved daughter." "Gur, Jiao Jiao didn't say that you cheated," Mr. Qin explained instinctively. "Did she say that there's any conflict with me wanting her to disappear?" Bei Yunj was still smiling lazily. There was a coldness in her extremely beautiful eyes that Mr. Qin had never seen before. Then before Mr. Qin could continue speaking, Bei Yunj saw Huashidu accompanying Old Master Qin down the stairs. The corners of her lips curled up as she walked towards the stairs. Bei Yunj asked with a smile as she leaned lazily against the railing with one hand supporting her head, and watched the man walk down the stairs. "What are you talking about with Grandpa?" "Talking about you." The man's thin red lips hooked up, then lazily stretched out his hand, leisurely scratched her chin. Bei Yunj was tickled and subconsciously rubbed against his cool fingertips. Huashidu could not help but chuckle when he saw this. In the eyes of the bystanders, this small interaction was inexplicably doting. When Old Master Qin saw this, he came back to his senses and felt that something was wrong. In the study room just now, he had only chatted with Huashidu about Bei Yunj's living environment and studies. He felt that Huashidu was someone who could take good care of Gur, but now, looking at this scene, Old Master Qin inexplicably felt that something was out of his control. "Grandpa Qin, I'll take Union back first. I'll visit you another day." The man in front of her was so polite that no one could find fault with him. Okay. Be careful on the road." Old Master Qin, an ordinary elder, could not help but remind them. Huashida replied, okay. Huh? Isn't Gu staying at the old mansion today? Qin Yu blurted out instinctively. Why would she stay? Doesn't your sister need to go to school? Old Master Qin rolled his eyes. However, in fact, seeing that his brothers cared about Bei Yunj, he was relieved. P.S. Be good and remember to vote. Chapter 402. That's enough. Don't just stand there and watch. Old Master Qin laughed coldly. I usually see that you're so busy, but you took the initiative to stay today. So it's because of Gu. Qin Yu was speechless. Not really. Old Master Qin chuckled and glanced at his 3 grandsons. How could he not know why everyone was here today? If it wasn't for Gu, how long would these 3 be willing to stay in the old mansion? However, he could also tell that compared to these 3 biological brothers, Gu liked the younger generation of the Hua family more. After leaving the old mansion, Seng Su was driving in front. Huashida's eyes were lazy and his well-defined hands loosened his tie casually. Even the 2 buttons on his collar were loose. He exuded a lustful and frivolous aura. The man glanced at the girl beside him. Yun, why were you angry just now? He knew that this child was not someone who would give others a way out. However, it was rare for him to act so recklessly. Bei Yunj was looking at the night view on the sparkling bridge outside. Hearing this, she turned back and thought for a while before she realized that Huashida was talking about Qin Yojiao. Bei Yunj's eyes curved, and the smile in her eyes was cold and unrestrained. She needs to be taught a lesson. It was not that Bei Yunj did not know that Qin Yojiao had manipulated public opinion to drag Director Lin down, and called Director Lin to come to Hengda. It was just that it was not time to touch her yet. But it did not mean that Bei Yunj had the patience to watch her jump around under her nose. Seeing the coldness in Bei Yunj's eyes, Huashida knew the relationship between the 2 of them. Brother, are you going to educate me? Bei Yunj looked up at him and asked with a smile. Huashida's gaze landed on her unwaveringly. He chuckled lazily and carelessly pinched her cheeks. The man's posture was light and seductive. The warmth of his fingers was so ambiguous that it made her blush and her heart race. My elder young miss should be more pampered and willful. As for the rules, it was not up to his child to follow. Hearing this, Bei Yunj's heart skipped a beat. It was as if a different emotion had taken root in her heart, and was growing quietly. Before long, Huashida suddenly remembered what old Master Qin had said just now. Yin. Bei Yunj asked, what's wrong? You can go back to the Qin family's old residence in a few days. As soon as the man spoke, Bei Yunj subconsciously moved her fingertips. You. The emotions in Bei Yunj's eyes were unclear. After a moment, her fingertips fiddled with her clothes again. Okay. After that, the atmosphere in the car was a little strange. Even after getting out of the car, Bei Yunj waited for Huashida as usual. She was more than a meter away from him. How could Huashida not tell that something was wrong with this young lady? Subsequently, he had just started walking towards Bei Yunj when he saw the little girl in front of him also walking forward. Yin. Okay, I'm going back to do my homework. The Pei in front acted as if nothing had happened. The corners of the man's upturned eyes were seductive, but there was a smile on his face. His voice trailed off as he called out again. Yin. What's wrong? Bei Yunj's tone was gentle. Brother is a little tired. Can you help brother back? Bei Yunj. She turned around and looked at the tall man with long legs in front of her expressionlessly. However, the man's posture was lazy and light. He did not look tired at all. Bei Yunj took a deep breath without batting an eyelid. I can't help him. I see. The smile on the man's lips was almost imperceptible. Just as Bei Yunj turned around, he suddenly walked over. Then Union should be tired. Chapter 403. Hearing this, before Bei Yunj could deny it, someone suddenly hugged her waist and turned her world upside down. The man easily carried her up. However, Bei Yunj felt that her center of gravity was unstable and subconsciously wrapped her arms around the man's neck. What are you doing? The man's deep and magnetic voice whispered in her ears with a smile, but his tone was light, flirtatious and seductive. Are you tired, Yunyan? Then I'll carry you back. Bei Yunj looked up and saw the man's refined side profile without blushing. She fell silent. It was all this face's fault. It was too deceptive back then. She had used all kinds of tricks along the way, but the man did not put her down. Until they returned to the living room. Huashidu placed her on the sofa and stared at her. Bei Yunj, can I go upstairs? The man's tone was lazy. No. Bei Yunj. Seeing that the little girl had been silent, the man's Adam's apple moved, and he laughed softly. Can't you stay with me for a while longer? Bei Yunj mimicked his attitude just now. No. Who knew? The man looked at her for a while and laughed softly. He suddenly leaned closer and dragged out his last syllable. His deep and ambiguous voice seemed to be blatantly seducing her. Yunyan, do you mean that you can't do anything? Yes. Bei Yunj turned her head and did not look at that face that could easily make people lose their bottom line. The corners of the man's lips curled up imperceptibly, but he was not frivolous. Then can you not act coquettishly with me? No. Before Bei Yunj could finish speaking, she reacted. Her eyes moved, and she subconsciously looked up, but she did not expect to meet the man's half-dark eyes. It was so tempting that her legs turned to jelly. However, the man's eyes had melted into a thick black color, and he was still staring straight at her. His sexy throat moved slightly, and he let out a chuckle. He lazily reached out and rubbed her cheek. Yes, so cute. It took Bei Yunj a while to react to his unexpected compliment. When did she act coquettishly? Bei Yunj looked up expressionlessly. Huashidu. Clearly, this little girl was already on the verge of exploding. Yes, I'm here. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched, but when she looked at the man's handsome face, her anger dissipated. She gritted her teeth and only managed to squeeze out 2 words. Behave yourself. After saying this, Bei Yunj stood up and walked upstairs. The man's usually cold peach blossom eyes were curled up at this moment. His smile was too good-looking and seductive, as if it could electrify people. The next day, Bei Yunj received a call early in the morning. It was Marcus who called to tell Bei Yunj that there were a lot of things that could be developed in the computer industry. He asked her if she planned to do it herself. After all, whether it was in the field of high-performance computers or the information industry, they had a natural advantage in terms of technology. Therefore, if Bei Yunj was interested, she might be able to give it a try. You want to do it too? Bei Yunj sat in the back seat and asked. I don't have the time. Someone came to talk to me about this some time ago, so I thought of you. Marcus smiled. It had to be said that Marcus was indeed very considerate of Bei Yunj. Thank you, Marcus. Bei Yunj smirked before she said, I have an idea. When do you plan to do it? Marcus asked immediately. Bei Yunj said kindly, there's no hurry. I'll look for Delaney later. I want to catch up with him. P.S. Be good and remember to vote. Chapter 404. Marcus didn't understand at first. After hanging up the phone, he thought for a while. He only thought of one use for Delaney. Marcus was speechless. He probably didn't want to reminisce about the past, but to get some money. At this moment, Delaney, who was still admiring beauties at the banquet, was still ignorant and happy. A few days later, the results of the second round of the International Musicians Association were out. 2 members of the International Musicians Association sent her the selection video and the admission results. As there were more eliminations in the second round, Bei Yunj could not help but frown after watching a few videos of people advancing to the second round. She watched all the selection videos again. In the end, somehow, she stopped at the selection video of an old man wearing a gentleman's hat and a tuxedo. She patiently listened to this original performance and called the members of the International Musicians Association. The members of the International Musicians Association obviously did not expect Yun, who had always been cold and ignored people, to call him. Jin Jihing was careful. Yun. Hello. I would like to ask, why didn't number 107 advance? As Bei Yunj spoke, she watched the old man's video again. Upon hearing this, Jin Jihing immediately went to look at number 107's selection video. Another voice sounded from the other end of the phone, as if asking him what had happened. After Jin Jiheng finished explaining, there was no response from the other end of the phone. Bei Yunj was not in a hurry. She just waited in boredom. Not long after, it was another person replying to her. His voice was sharp and deep, with a hint of mockery. He's too old. Besides, this is an original song. Anyone can write it better than him. He was the one who eliminated this old man. The original song was so unpleasant. He did not know what kind of mentality he had to dare to use it to participate in the International Musicians Association's selection. Girl Classmate Network. Did the International Musicians Association accept all kinds of trash? Jin Jiheng warned Arn. I didn't say anything wrong. Arnie's tone was disdainful. Alright, I got it. Bei Yunj restrained the light in her eyes and said unhurriedly, "Add a spot and let him pass the second round." Instantly, Arn froze and his tone became sharper. Why? How can there be such a person in our International Musicians Association? He was already very dissatisfied with the recruitment of Country A's people. Now they were still recruiting such old and untalented people. Really? Because I think I can, Bei Yunj said slowly. When Arn heard this, his eyes were filled with malice. He could no longer hide his dissatisfaction with Bei Yunj. He sneered. Yun, I admit that you're young and talented. But recruiting such a piece of trash, could it be that you made some shady deal with him? After all, she had been indifferent during the first round. Arn, watch your words. Kim Jiheng frowned and reprimanded. President Du Xiao thought so highly of Yun. Wasn't Arn slapping President Du Xiao's face by offending Yun like this? Afterward, before Arn could continue mocking him, he heard a lazy voice. She smiled faintly. Do you think I need to explain it to you? You. Arnie's expression changed. If you don't want to work anymore, get Elder Du to replace you as soon as possible, Bei Yunj said casually. Hearing this, Arnie's face turned green and red, but he did not dare to tell Du Xiao. He still had business to attend to, so how could he leave? Moreover, Chapter 405. After holding it in for a while, Arn then said, I was being nosy. I'll add it for him now. It's good that you know your place. Bei Yunj laughed lazily and hung up the call very quickly. This infuriated Arn even more. This Yun. She's simply young and frivolous. Jin Jiheng sipped his tea silently. But she's talented. So what if she's talented? Someone like her. Before Arn could finish speaking, Jin Jiheng suddenly paused. He placed the teacup on the table heavily and leaned closer to the computer. It was as if he wanted to see how the 107 elder played. What are you doing? Arn was shocked by his action and quickly turned to ask. Look at the way he plays. At first, Jin Jiheng also felt that Yun's personal preferences were a little strange. Why would she take a fancy to such an ordinary old man? But not long after, he realized that something was wrong. Look at the movements of his fingers and elbows when he plays. Also, this small section just now seems to have about 200 to 300 notes. Jin Jiheng was stunned. At first, he only felt that this composition and style were very mediocre. In fact, it was not likable. But now that he listened carefully, it was an original score that was extremely difficult to play. Moreover, it had a strong emotional impact. Arnie's expression changed. He did not expect that this was really the one that was almost missed. But not long after, he was still disdainful. He's already so old. What's the use of coming to the International Musicians Association? Besides, we still need to listen carefully to this song to realize that it's different. What about ordinary listeners? Bei Yunj was quite interested in this score, but perhaps because the style was too different, it needed to be polished. She wrote for about 20 minutes. Just as she found the old man's email and was about to send it over, she paused. A moment later, at the end, Bei Yunj typed another paragraph of text. The score is not bad. I'm looking forward to the next round. After typing, she sent it and turned off her computer. At this moment, at the Bo family residence, the atmosphere was especially strange. Bo Xiuqin glanced at father and mother Bo, who did not look too good. If Grandpa likes it, let him do it. In the past, When old Master Bo was young, his family did not allow him to learn music because he was the only heir of the family. But now that there was someone in the family managing the company, the old man could do whatever he wanted. Are we not going to let him do it now? Mr. Bo's face darkened. Your grandfather heard from others that the people who advanced in the second round of the International Musicians Association have already received the news. He hasn't. Right now, the old man is fishing and thinking about life. At first, he did not agree to old Master Bo going, because he was afraid that old Master Bo would not be able to advance, and would be so upset that he would not be able to eat for a few days. But now what he was afraid of had happened. Can't the International Musicians Association be bought with money? Bo Xiuqun frowned. Mr. and Mrs. Bo's expressions changed. But very quickly, Mother Bo carefully looked upstairs. Seeing that there was no movement, she dared to speak softly. Mom has used her connections. Mr. Jean, who is in charge of recruitment, is my old classmate. But no matter what, they refused to open the back door. Bo Xiuqun was silent for a moment. Where are the others in charge? One of them is from Country B. It's said that he has a big problem with people who are too old. It won't work either. Mrs. Bo thought for a while and said, There's another one. The person in charge is from our country. Bo Xiuqun looked at her. Who is it? Chapter 406. It's Man's arranger. Her name is Yuan. When Bo Xiuqun heard this, helplessness appeared in his cold and arrogant eyes. Since they know each other, can't we just contact Manran directly? I've contacted them. This won't work. Mrs. Bo looked worried. Man said that if we really went to look for Yuan, that person might directly eliminate Old Master. Sigh, why are there so many people in this world who don't bend over for money? Bo Xiuqun glanced at her and did not say anything else. A moment later, he suddenly remembered. Old Master is fishing? I didn't see him when I came over from the pond just now. He thinks the wind is cold and got the butler to catch a few fish and put them in the bucket. He's fishing upstairs. Bo Xiuqun. Will he come downstairs to eat later? He might not. Hence, the entire Bo family started to worry about the troublesome old master. Half an hour later, there was a commotion upstairs. Son, daughter-in-law, Chun, I've advanced. Suddenly, old Master Bo ran down like a gust of wind, his face overjoyed. Father Bo was shocked and immediately went forward to help him, afraid that he would fall. Aya, why are you helping me? Old Master Bo slapped Father Bo's hand away unhappily and instantly beamed. Look, this is for me. Hearing this, Father Bo looked like he had seen a ghost, and really looked at the email carefully. How could anyone take a liking to the old man's strange composition? Grandpa, did someone else send it from this account too? Bo Xiuqun looked at the email account. It did not seem to be an official account. Account? Let me ask. Old Master Bo was stunned for a moment, before he quickly went to ask the other participants. Who knew? The account information sent by others was completely different from the account information sent to him. Old Master Bo's expression changed. I don't think so. Seeing that Old Master Bo was in a daze, Bo Xiuqun immediately called the International Musicians Association to ask. Father and Mother Bo shook their heads frantically. This old master was already agitated. What if this email was really fake and someone else's prank? However, Bo Xiuqun ignored them and continued to negotiate with the International Musicians Association. After hanging up, Bo Xiuqun turned around and said, We don't know who sent this email. The International Musicians Association said that the official account will send an email to explain later. Oh, old Master Bo's ears drooped, and the joy he felt just now was gone. The family of four watched the TV series expressionlessly. The atmosphere became even colder. About 15 minutes later, old Master Bo's heart skipped a beat when he heard his phone vibrate. He calmed down for a moment and opened the email. Unexpectedly, there were two emails. One was the official promotion notice from the International Musicians Association. The other letter was also an explanation from the International Musicians Association. Hello, Mr. Bo. After checking, your email was sent by the person in charge of recruitment, Yun. I hope you will continue to work hard and look forward to the day when the International Musicians Association meets you. Although this explanation was written very officially, however, Old Master Bo almost stood up. It was Yun who sent it to me. Old Master Bo was so excited that he was incoherent. When he thought of the email that Yun had just sent him, which contained guidance and encouragement for him, he felt like he was about to fly. Among so many second-round promotions, only he was specially sent by Yun. At this moment, Chapter 407. What entered her eyes was a rather long professional guide. Although it was long, there was no nonsense at all. It was very concise. It could be seen that this person in charge was not easy to get close to. It could also be seen that this person in charge really liked the old master's score. After reading it, Mr. Bo looked up and saw his son's probing gaze. It was as if he was asking him, "Don't tell me you've already bribed her?" Mr. Bo was speechless. If they really bribed him, did he need to be so anxious? However, the most reassuring thing now was that the old master had advanced. Their Bo family's crisis had also been resolved. For a few days, news about the International Musicians Association was spreading crazily online. The person who was discussed the most was Qin Yojiao, who was the youngest in the second round of the International Musicians Association. Although the fake young lady of the Qin family had made Qin Yojiao a big joke. However, in the eyes of the netizens, the nearly 18 debutante ball last time, and the second round of the International Musicians Association this time, had completely turned the tables. Even her fans had increased by more than half, and the comments section was filled with praises. What kind of beautiful and talented young lady can enter the second round of the International Musicians Association? Piano tour at the age of 18. She can reach the second round of the International Musicians Association at the age of 19. Nice, her future is promising. Is there anything to be proud of in the second round of the International Musicians Association? She wasn't recruited. The person who said this is really brainless. There are only about 20 members in the International Musicians Association, and all of them are immortals. It's normal not to enter, but it's heaven-defying to enter. Qin Yojiao is already very skilled to be able to reach the second round. Yes, it's said that there are more than 10,000 people who signed up this time. After the first round of elimination, only 200 people are left. There are only 20 to 30 people who advanced in the second round. Don't you think Qin Yojiao is amazing? Ha ha ha. If there's an official member under the age of 30 in the International Musicians Association, I'll cut off his head and let everyone kick it as a ball. Tisk. I used to think that Qin Yojiao had suffered a loss after leaving the Qin family. Now it seems like the Qin family is the one who suffered a loss. Ever since the nearly 18 debutante ball, I've felt that this woman is not simple. I love her. Reading these comments, Qin Yojiao's lips curled up. But suddenly, a caller ID appeared on the phone screen. Qin Yojiao's smile froze, but she quickly picked up the call. How is it? Does it feel good to be the center of attention after the second round? The woman's voice sounded. Hearing this, Qin Yojiao knew very well that now that she had everything, this woman would make her pay a greater price. Thank you. The woman sneered. There's no need to thank me. You've passed the second round, but it'll be difficult for you to pass the third round. What do you mean by this? Qin Yojiao's heart seemed to be in her throat as she asked subconsciously. When I arranged this for you, I didn't investigate the person in charge. I only found out yesterday that the person in charge is Yun. The woman's words immediately made Qin Yojiao's voice turn sharp. Her face turned pale. What? How is this possible? Didn't Yun just enter the International Musicians Association? How could she be in charge of this recruitment? Speaking of which, it's all because of Yun that Country A has these 2 spots. Therefore the president loves her and her dog. The woman smiled. It's normal that she's the one in charge this time. However, What you need to worry about is that she interfered in the second round of selection. Qin Yojiao pursed her lips. Can't you help me settle it? With that said, laughter trailed from the other end. Chapter 408. I've asked. Yun has the final say in this recruitment. The woman answered without hiding anything. However, Qin Yojiao's heart tightened. But didn't you say that you would help me get a spot? With that said, anger rose in Qin Yojiao's heart as her eyes filled with jealousy. What right did Yun have to be chosen by Du Xiao? And she couldn't. Jiao, why are you in such a hurry? Of course I'll help you. The woman added. I'm saying this because I don't want you to be affected by your emotions. Yun isn't the students, you know. Even if there's a difference, it won't be too big. After all, with her ability, it's possible for her to succeed as the president in a few years. It was only when Qin Yojiao regained her senses that she realized the difference between her and Yun. She gritted her teeth and asked, I know what you mean. Then what do I have to do to get a spot in the International Musicians Association? Remember the website address? Hearing this, the woman chuckled. Her. Qin Yojiao's eyes turned red. However, there was silence on the other end of the call. Qin Yojiao froze. Using Yun's score? But Yun was the person in charge of the recruitment. Could she be allowed in? Don't worry, I'll get her new score for you. As long as you can play it, she can only swallow this matter obediently. I heard from my people that Yun likes music scores very much. Then why don't you can use her new score for the 4th round? Hers. Hearing this, Qin Yojiao understood completely. This was this woman's scheme. On one hand, she was using her to suppress Yun. Qin Yojiao clenched her fists. But didn't you say that she might succeed as the president? Could she continue to stay after offending the future president? As long as you listen to me, you'll be fine. What help? I have a friend who studies computing. Can you help him find a capable teacher? On the other hand, she wanted Yun to hate her. This way, she could only listen to her. Qin Yojiao gritted her teeth, knowing that this was her only way. I promise you, but I have a favor to ask you for. Isn't there still a week? I'll give you a new score in 3 days. Bei Yunj was standing in front of the apartment building. As soon as she picked up the call, she went straight to the point. That's not what I'm talking about this time. For the past few days, Bei Yunj had been busy with the project and didn't pay much attention to the International Musicians Association. Who knew? The next day, Du Xiao personally called again. Bei Yunj, keep an eye on me? Yes. I've been investigating for 2 days and found out that someone wants to steal your new score. Be careful these days. You can send me the score a week later. Du Xiao did not forget to remind her. Also, don't put the score in the computer. Use a paper to write it down. Du Xiao's eyelids twitched. Bei Yunj, then what is it? During this period of time, I've been urging you to write the score. I didn't notice that someone had their eyes on you. I understand. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. She didn't expect that someone would be interested in her new song before it was even completed. After a while, she was afraid that that person would have a backup plan and simply hack into Bei Yunj's computer to steal the score. After all, she still did not know who that person was. However, he could even bribe someone from the International Musicians Association. It was obvious that that person was very powerful. She suddenly laughed. Elder Du, I have something to trouble you with. What is it? Bei Yunj said. Can you continue investigating this for me? Don't worry. Even if you don't say anything, I'll investigate this. After all, you're a member of the International Musicians Association now. Hearing Du Xiao say this, Bei Yunj nodded. Chapter 409. Thank you, Elder Du. Du Xiao smiled. I've found out. What do you plan to do? Bei Yunj's eyes curved and her casual tone carried a hint of playfulness. Since someone misses me so much, of course I have to return the favor. Not long after hanging up the phone, a voice sounded from the elevator. Gore, why are you here? Director Lin had just come downstairs. When she saw Bei Yunj downstairs, her heart ached as she tugged at her. However, her tone was gentle as she scolded. The weather is so hot. What are you doing downstairs? I'm free today, so I wanted to accompany you. Bei Yunj's red lips curled up. She didn't know if Director Lin had woken up at this time, so she waited downstairs. She thought that Director Lin would also go to buy groceries in the morning. I think you're trying to anger me to death. What if you get a heat stroke on such a hot day? The old lady wiped Bei Yunj's sweat with heartache and continued to nag. Even if you miss Grandma, you shouldn't wait downstairs. Can't you just call Grandma? It's okay. I'm also happy to wait for Grandma downstairs. Bei Yunj's eyes were too beautiful. When she smiled, the old lady's heart melted. This is the key. Gur, go upstairs and watch TV for a while. Grandma will go buy groceries and come back to cook something delicious for you. Director Lin had always wanted to see Bei Yunj, but she was afraid that Bei Yunj would be bored if she accompanied an old lady like her. Therefore, Director Lin rarely called Bei Yunj. However, this time, Director Lin was already overjoyed that Bei Yunj took the initiative to look for her. Grandma, I'll accompany you to the market. Bei Yunj didn't wait for Director Lin to refuse and held her arm as they walked out. However, she didn't expect, suddenly, there was the sound of high heels clicking on the ground behind them. A figure almost knocked Director Lin down. Delicacies. Fortunately, Bei Yunj was holding on to Director Lin's arm. A trace of coldness flashed past Bei Yunj's eyes as she looked up at the young woman in a suit. But before she could speak, Director Lin hurriedly grabbed her hand. Gur, this little girl is opposite of mine. She was probably in a hurry, because she was going to be late. It doesn't matter. Bei Yunj restrained the coldness in his eyes and said lightly, Yes, Grandma, let's go shopping. All right. In the wet market. Watching Director Lin buy groceries, Bei Yunj couldn't say anything. She could only help Director Lin carry the groceries. As she lazily held her phone, she opened her contact list and found the person in charge of Director Lin's community. Hello. Is there a woman in her 20s or 30s living in my grandmother's apartment? Very soon. The person in charge literally replied. Shaoli, yes, the resident of 401 Himaching, is the only 26 to 27-year-old woman. Seeing this, Bei Yunj typed another paragraph. Yes, ask her to move out this week. She doesn't have to pay this month's rent. Seeing this message, the person in charge, Shaoli, seemed to be shocked for a while before he replied. Okay. This condominium was actually under Bei Yunj's name. However, the condominium that Bei Yunj bought in the beginning was another personal condominium in this community. However, Director Lin felt that it was too big, so Bei Yunj had no choice but to buy a smaller multi-unit condominium. He chose the most comfortable one for Director Lin to live in. As for the rest, he asked the person in charge to help him rent. After all, Bei Yunj bought the entire condominium to make it easier for Director Lin to choose a neighbor. Suddenly, the auntie's voice sounded. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.